Here we go. Okay. All righty, we're going to bring this meeting back to order. Okay. Welcome to the Queen Anne's County Commissioners meeting. This is a public meeting that is being aired live on our local cable television station, QAC TV 7. These media broadcasts provide county citizens an opportunity to watch and review our scheduled public sessions. To comply with the governor's proclamation declaring a state of emergency in Maryland to minimize the person-to-person spread of COVID-19, we ask that citizens stay home and watch the County Commissioners meeting live on our QAC website at www.qac.org/live or on QAC TV's television channel at Atlantic Broadband Cable Channel 7 or 77. To maintain social distancing, seating will be restricted to invited presenters. If you have any respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, and/or shortness of breath, please refrain from attending the meeting and notify a healthcare provider. We are screening all meeting participants prior to entering the building. Press and public comment, however, is still encouraged. Citizens can join the live Zoom meetings by going to www.qac.org/public comment, or citizens may email comments to publiccomment@qac.org. Or you can leave a voicemail comment by calling 443-262-4601. We will be accepting comments up until approximately 6 p.m. Comments received will be read aloud during the press and public comment period on this evening's agenda. Citizens may also submit written testimony to the County Commissioners by mail at 107 North Liberty Street, Centerville, Maryland, or by email at qaccommissioners&administrator@qac.org. We will now stand and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Commission President Jim Moran. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to have a moment of silence for spring and hope it gets here and stays. Thank you. All right, thank you, Commissioners. We just held a closed session under Section 3-305B1 of the General Provisions article to discuss personnel, boards, and commissions, and under Section 3-305B3 of the General Provisions article to discuss land acquisitions. Okay, first, we did reach consensus on a number of boards and commission appointments. Would you want to go through those? Sure. Okay, first we had the Employee Awards Committee. Can I get a motion? Okay. I move to appoint Alan Toblib to a 2-year term on the Employee Awards Committee to begin immediately and end December 31st, 2021.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you, Commissioners. Next, we had the Ethics Commission appointment. We have one vacancy there and 2 applicants.
I move to appoint Will Mullock as an alternate member to the Ethics Commission to fill remaining unexpired term to begin immediately and end December 31st, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion there? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you, Commissioners. Next, we have the Liquor Board appointment.
All right.
Good, I'm sorry.
I move to I move to appoint Gene Ransom to fill the remaining unexpired term of the Liquor Board to begin immediately and end on June 30th, 2022, and to reappoint John McQueenie for a 4-year term on the Liquor Board to begin July 1st, 2020, and end on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you, Commissioners. And our last one for this evening is the Personnel Board. We have 2 appointments there.
I move to appoint, I guess it's Judy, right, first? Judy Corcorino to fill a remaining unexpired term on the Personnel Board to begin immediately and end December 31st, 2021, and to reappoint Jane Viseras to a 4-year term.
No, they're backwards. They're backwards. I'm sorry, Phil. I got you backwards. My apologies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start over.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I move to appoint Jane Viseras to fill a remaining unexpired term on the Personnel Board to begin immediately and end December 31st, 2021, and reappoint Judy Corcorino to a 4-year term on the Personnel Board to begin immediately and end June 30th, 2024.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So
I'm
moved.
just recused as to Judy and in favor for Jane.
There you go. Okay.
Get that, Marge?
Got one abstention on Judy.
Very good.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. And we had one land acquisition item. We have the detention center proposed property acquisition, and this is the vacant property adjacent to the county detention center, which is needed for our expansion project out there. It's about 6.3 acres. We had a number of appraisals ranging from $130,000 to over $275,000, and we offered the town $160,000, and they accepted that offer. So can I get a motion on that, please?
I move to purchase 6.413 acres from the town of Centerville in the amount of $160,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. All right, so next we have, if you want to turn to tab number 2, we have the Department of Public Works here this evening.
Minutes and
Oh,
agenda.
accept minutes?
Excuse me. Yeah, you're right. Let's see here. Yes, we have the agenda for today's meeting, May the 12th, and the regular and closed session minutes from your April 28th meeting, and the regular meeting minutes from your May 5th meeting, along with the Roads Board and Sanitary Commission meeting minutes from your April 14th meeting were distributed electronically for review. Were there any additions and/or corrections?
No. Good. Can we get a motion to,
I move to approve. All.
Second?
we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda and the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, excellent, thank you. All right, now we can turn to tab 2 for the Department of Public Works, and we have 3 items from DPW tonight. So I think Mr. Quimby is out there, or Mr. Edgar. I don't know who's coming in first. Okay, we
There
have
he is.
Mr. Lee Edgar, Chief of Engineering.
Evening, Commissioners.
This is,
Good
the
evening, Lee.
first item is Historic Courthouse Exterior Paint, Trim, and Repair Contract. So, get a motion on that?
I move to award the historic courthouse exterior paint and trim and repair construction contract to Colossus Contractors, Inc. of Burtonsville, Maryland, in the amount of $64,360, and authorize the Director of Public Works to issue the notice of award and execute the contract on behalf of the County Commissioners.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Well, Commissioners, this year the historic courthouse is 224 years old, and it's my understanding that the last time it enjoyed a fresh coat of paint was when Mr. Mon was the engineer. So it's been a little while, and as you can see, it's peeling. Prior to the COVID
What, the
situation,
courthouse is peeling or Todd Mon is peeling?
courthouse.
Both, yeah.
Sorry. We had put this out to bid prior to the COVID-19 situation, but nonetheless went through the public procurement. You see the bids there. The scope of work involves removal of the gutters and downspouts, the shutters, all pertinent trim, prepping, doing proper lead remediation and such, and applying new paint, repaint, and reinstalling the gutters and downspouts and getting it looking good again. So Colossal Contractors is the lowest bidder, and it looks like they'd be poised to do a good job for us.
Any questions?
Have we ever used them for anything else, or is this the first time they've done work for us?
They had done some work for the sanitary district within the last couple of years, and I understand they did a good job with that.
Okay.
We had phoned 2 other references as well, and they all spoke very highly of their work.
Perfect.
Lee, check and see they have a lead permit, because they need to have that for,
Thank you, Commissioner. Yep, that was a requirement that we put in order to be a qualified bidder. They had to be EPA certified for lead removal, and this contractor is, and he provide the appropriate documentation.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're moving to award the historic courthouse exterior paint, trim, and repair construction contract to Colossal Contractors Incorporated of Burtonsville, Maryland, in the amount of $64,360, and authorize the Director of Public Works to issue the notice of award and execute the contract on behalf of the County Commissioners. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Lee. Next, we have an informational item from Steve Cahoon, reduction in traffic volumes. This is our traffic counters for the COVID-19 state of emergency.
Take care,
This is a
Lee.
report that we put together. And I know we have some graphics. Do you want to try to get that up?
Yeah, I'll unlock it for you. Have it on.
Yep. Let Bruce do that. Steve?
Go to COVID-19 traffic impacts right there, and just chart Bay Bridge.
Yep.
Can you cycle through anything? No.
No, that,
Okay.
shall we get started? Or wait
sure,
for
yeah.
Jim?
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. The county commissioners last month signed the SHA MDOT tour letter, and during that conversation, there were questions about the trends of traffic patterns and how traffic's been impacted by COVID-19, and requested a regular update on that. So far, we've tracked 2 months of our traffic counters. We have traffic counters in 4 main locations, US 50 at the Bay Bridge, US 50 at Carmichael Road, US 301 at Galena Road, which is Maryland 313, closer to the Delaware line, and then US 301 at Delrose Avenue in Queenstown. And what we did is we went back and compared the 2020 traffic counts to 2018 and 2019. The chart up on the screen represents the traffic counts for 3 different years. Blue is 2018, yellow 2019, and the COVID red color is the 2020 traffic counts. And so we're pulling, and then from left to right, the chart represents the time lapse from the beginning of March to the end of April. And as you can see, in the beginning of March, traffic patterns and traffic counts were fairly consistent for all 3 years. As the state of Maryland went into state emergency on March 5th, you could begin to see the red line separate from the historical trends and then begin to take a downward decrease. And overall, what we've seen is as more restrictions went into place, we saw 25, 30%, 40% reduction in daily traffic at all 4 counter locations. Ultimately, with all the restrictions in place in April, we saw approximately a 50% decrease in traffic during the weekdays and up to 75% decreased traffic on the weekends. And that's a fundamentally different traffic pattern with the restrictions in place than what we've seen in previous years. With the restrictions in place, what we saw was weekdays being our highest travel times, and weekends, with the stay-at-home order in place, reduction in traffic by 60 to 70%. As opposed to in 2018 and 2019, our busiest travel days were Sundays, and the highest travel volumes always occurred on Sundays. So, you know, for the last two years, our highest travel days were weekends. Now, with this in place, it's our lowest travel period. And if you look at how it's graphed out, you can actually see the dips and pick out the weekends for the change in traffic volumes. So our counter in Queenstown around the outlet center obviously saw a large change with the outlet center being closed. That was one of the biggest changes we noticed. But also up on 301 at Galena Road, Maryland 313, we saw Sunday traffic go down. That's the highest reduction we've seen. It was traffic at that location go down about 80% on Sundays. So very different traffic pattern. And keep in mind, these numbers are highway traffic. These are numbers on 50 and 301, as opposed to like the small local trips that people may be doing to get to the grocery store or something. But the through traffic, we've seen a pretty big change in reduction. And we'll continue to track that. Next month, we'll come back and show you what happened in May and see how that corresponds with economic issues and work issues and restrictions in place, health issues, yes.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Very good. Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank Steve. I think these charts, these graphs really display the impact pretty clearly in terms of over that month's period.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big difference out there, so.
How it impacted so many people so quickly.
It did. All right, thank you, Steve. All right, Commissioners, if you want to turn to item 3 on page 13, we have the Graysonville Hospitality Management, trading as Denny's Restaurant, Public Works Agreement Amendment.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
As Todd indicated, what we have before you is an amendment to a public works agreement with Graysonville Hospitality Management, who's the ones who developed the Denny site. And in so doing, they had to extend a water main. And if you recall, sometimes we have a provision in the public works agreements that when they have to extend a water main, there's a what we call a water rebate provision. If people connect onto their water main for a certain period of time, we give them half the allocation fees to try to offset some of that cost, and that's what this would do.
Can we get a motion?
I move to execute the Public Works Agreement Amendment Number 1 with Graysonville Hospitality Management, LLC, to set the parameters of the water rebate program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any questions? Do they already have somebody else
One house along Station Lane connected.
that's connected now?
Yes.
And anybody looking to connect? And
Not to my knowledge. We had quite a bit of interest when the pipe was going in, but nobody's really stepped up other than this one person.
really?
But they have 10 years, so maybe something will happen for them.
What happens in 10 years?
Yeah, the program's done. So if somebody connects in the 11th year, they get nothing.
Yeah.
If they collect in the 11th year, what happens?
If somebody connects in the 11th year,
Yeah.
they would get nothing.
You mean hospitality would get nothing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. But it still costs whoever connects the same amount of money?
Yes.
Great, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt them. It hurts the sanitary a little bit, but, you know, we get pipe for free, so.
Right.
It's a,
While on the subject, if I may. There was a question brought up to me, and I didn't know the answer, and I thought perhaps maybe you could help us out. I know that there are folks that own small plazas and malls, small plazas and strip plazas and things of that nature. And their businesses, their tenants' businesses are closed. Are we doing anything to help subsidize? In other words, they're built into their rents is, water and sewer costs. They're passing that on to their tenant. And since their tenants aren't paying because they're not open, and these landlords are working out a deal with them to defer their rents until they can open their businesses and start making money again. I guess my question is, are we doing the same as a county when it comes to the expectation that these landlords, these plaza owners, if you will, when it comes time to pay their water and sewer bills, are we working with them?
well, if you remember, one of the earlier executive orders that Governor Hogan issued was to waive interest and penalties going forward, which obviously we've done that in accordance with him. You can go beyond that if you wish. That's really something for you all to discuss. But at this point in time, the only thing we've done is waive interest and penalties. Now, if they're on water, then obviously their bill's down anyways because they're not consuming
There's
water.
no lot of usage
But
there.
if they're not on water, it's a little more difficult for them.
Okay, so if they reach out to us and say, I can't pay my sewer and my water bill, for whatever reason, I can't pay it, is there a bubble, when we come out of COVID that they're going to have to pay? And it'll be interest and penalty free?
Yes.
They just have to make themselves right and current at that point?
Probably the question you need to talk about, in my mind, would be the tax sale implications at the end of the year, which I can't help you with that one.
You do that and you're coming perilously close to remediating taxes.
Sure.
Okay, but I mean, as a county, we're willing to work with
I
these
think-
landowners.
I would certainly recommend waiving the interest and penalties until they get back on their feet. That doesn't really hurt the county, but you got to do it for everybody. You just can't do it for
Sure.
businesses. You got to do it for everybody, every customer, which I think we could sustain that.
I mean, I just know that if folks are reaching out to their, to their mortgage companies and reaching out to their power companies and those entities are working with the homeowner, I just was curious what we're doing for those landowners that have these strip malls and plazas that there's no revenue coming in
and
from.
homeowners that have been laid off as well.
Okay.
But the question, in my mind, is what happens at the end of the year when tax sale implications kick in.
Meaning at the end of the year, they don't.
If they haven't paid.
They haven't made
Right.
their
They go onto a tax sale list. And of course, that's something that we as commissioners need to consider giving some leniency there. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, we got,
Appreciate it.
hold on, we're not done yet. So does anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, we are moving to execute the Public Works Agreement Amendment Number 1 with Graysonville Hospitality Management LLC to set the parameters of the water rebate program. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm sorry, Jim.
So
I thought we had already voted on that.
No, we just took the
I
motion.
apologize.
That's cool, no worries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quimby. Thank you, Commissioners. Okay, Commissioners, if you want to move to tab number 3, we have some action items for your consideration tonight. First, we have several proclamations. The
Read the
first
first
one
one,
is the Mental Health Awareness Month. It's on page 1, item 1, tab 3.
I think this would probably be appropriate for me to read.
All yours.
Commissioner Gimenell, yes?
No comment, Jack. Proclamation, Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2020. Whereas the mental health of every citizen is essential to the emotional and economic prosperity of our families, communities, and businesses in Queen Anne's County. And whereas mental health is a key component of every individual's overall physical health and emotional well-being. And whereas mental illness affects people of all ages, races, ethnicity, and income levels in Queen Anne's County. And whereas mental health conditions are not only common, they are treatable, and early effective intervention can save the trajectories of people living with mental illness. Whereas feelings of personal shame and fears of social stigma and discrimination prevent many living with mental illness from seeking help. And whereas untreated mental illness leads to higher rates of emergency department visits, hospitalizations, school dropouts, and suicides. And whereas stigma leads to fear, mistrust, and violence against people with mental illness, who are significantly more likely to be victims than perpetrators of violent crimes. And whereas stigma can be reduced by increasing the awareness of mental illness and available resources for those suffering from mental health conditions. And whereas a greater public awareness about mental illness can positively transform attitudes about and towards people with mental illness, making it easier for the citizens of Queen Anne's County to seek help. Now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Queen Anne's County, do hereby declare May 2020 Mental Health Month. We call on all citizens, agencies, private institutions, businesses, and schools in Queen Anne's County to commit to increasing awareness of mental health and to recognize the necessities of accessible and appropriate mental health services for all citizens of Queen Anne's County, signed by Queen Anne's County Commissioners.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dumanel.
Well read.
Okay, next, item number 2 on page 2, we have Older Americans Month 2020.
I'll read this.
Wait, older Americans.
I think Stevie should read this one.
Put my glasses on, let me do it.
Hold on.
I've been waiting all year.
My man, fire away.
It's the shorter one, though.
I knew that's what.
It's a memory
We'll
thing.
give you the next one. How about that?
The long one.
Did you tell me to do it?
Yes, sir. I asked you.
He can't remember.
See? Memory.
That's wrong.
Proclamation. Whereas, around the nation, older adults make their marks every day as volunteers, employees, employers, parents, grandparents, mentors, and advocates. They offer their time, talents, and experience to the benefit of our communities, and whereas Queen Anne's County includes a growing number of older Americans who make countless contributions to our community every day, and whereas Queen Anne's County is stronger when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds are included and encouraged to make their mark, and whereas Queen Anne's County recognizes the importance of the physical, mental, social, and emotional well-being of its citizens, and Queen Anne's County can support our community members by promoting independence, inclusion, and participation, engaging older adults through education, recreation, and service, and connecting peoples with opportunities to share their time, experience, and talents. Now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Queen Anne's County, do hereby proclaim May 2020 to be Older Americans Month and urge every resident to recognize older adults and the people who support them as essential members of our community by the Queen Anne's County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
There you go. And we're going to leave the last one, the pillar of the month for May.
Because I'm caring, I get to read about
You
it.
are.
I got it.
You are.
All right.
You got a big heart.
Everybody else here is stone cold, so this is for me. All right. Pillar of the month for May, caring. This is Proclamation 20-27. Whereas almost 20 years ago, Queen Anne's County was declared a character counts community, and we as citizens were encouraged to come together and build a strong community based on the 6 pillars of character. And whereas all citizens throughout these years have worked so hard to embrace the 6 pillars of character and incorporate them into their daily activities and to model these traits of good character. And by doing so, we have created this healthy, safe, and secure place for our families. And whereas the Character Counts pillar of the month of May is caring, and we, as the citizens of Queen Anne's County, in the midst of this unprecedented national emergency created by the COVID-19 virus, have really seen our character counts. Communities stand up during this challenge and show that caring is essential at a time like this. And whereas in Queen Anne's County, we see and feel the spirit of character counts in the entire county uniting with an overabundance of kindness, showing they care, helping those in need, being thankful, and expressing gratitude. And whereas caring are the many organizations throughout our community that have stepped up and bonded together and continue to provide food to anyone and everyone here in Queen Anne's County, so our citizens will not worry about the basic human need. And whereas caring are those who help others however they can, by volunteering their time or resources, shopping for those who cannot get out, for making and distributing masks for our community, and for just being a friend during these uncertain times. And whereas caring are the schools and the teachers who have stepped up and adapted to distance learning so our children can continue to learn, and to Character Counts coaches that have resumed virtual Character Counts lessons so we may continue to instill and highlight these important values in our youth. And whereas caring is being thankful and grateful for the frontline workers here in Queen Anne's County and everywhere for doing what they do day after day, trying to save lives and keep us safe and provided for. Now therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Queen Anne's County, do hereby designate the Character Counts pillar of the month of May to be caring, and call upon all of Queen Anne's County citizens at this time to stay home, be safe, and continue to join together and support the 6 pillars of character.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
That was touchingly done.
Sip here.
Very good. Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Commissioner Corkerino. Very well done. Item 4 on page 5 is Village at Slippery Hill request for support of Phase 2, and we have Mike Clark here and representatives from Green Street Housing, Tom Ard, to go over this with you. Go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
One more time.
One time.
So why don't you explain, so those people at home watching this, what this is that you're asking of the county and the commissioners, and how it affects the county and how it affects your project?
So as everybody may know who drives by, the first phase at the Village of Slippery Hill, which includes 66 apartments, is nearing construction. We should have our first CO this week.
And my apologies, Slippery Hill is the development that's across from the emergency center
On
at
Nesbitt.
Nesbitt Road, and you are?
My name's Tom Aid. I'm with Green Street Housing. I'm an owner and developer of the project.
Thank you. Okay.
So we are nearing completion. We should be having folks moving into the units within the next 30 days. The project was approved for 185 units, which would include some senior housing, another 66 units of family housing. And so we are in the planning phases now that the first phase is underway. We're in the planning phases of applying for financing with the state of Maryland for the development of the senior housing building, which is 54 units, and the 66 unit phase 2 of family housing. And so in 2012, we requested support of the commissioners in the form of a payment in lieu of taxes. And it was approved, and for the first phase and for the subsequent phases, this payment in lieu of taxes will be in place to reduce the tax burden, the property tax burden for the property by $200 per unit. And so that is, it expresses a strong commitment by the county to the state, and the state awards competitive points. So it helps meet their criteria and overall supports the project and increases the likelihood of receiving the funding for it. So for the second phase, which is a family, we intend to pursue the competitive tax credits again, and we hope to also receive the $200 per unit discount on the property taxes that we'll receive there. And then on the senior housing building, it's a different type of financing, but still serving the low-income populations. And it relies more heavily on debt than in equity through the sale of the tax credits. And we're coming to the county for additional, deeper support for that in the form of an increased amount of per unit reduction in property taxes, so that we can support more financing on the project and make it real. So in this case, the support, obviously, it extends to the state and sees that the county stands behind the project.
So what does that, I guess for everybody that's possibly watching at home, the payment in lieu of taxes is a reduction in the property tax, as you said, per unit of approximately $200. So that money, is that a reduction in the rent for those individuals? How does that work in the end user? I know it helps you get points if it shows the county's commitment that you want workforce housing and, what the product that you're putting out there. But how does that work to the end user, or does it not?
So the end user's rents are established by a third party and independent market study. And so the professional surveys the market area and sees what is achievable and what should be set for the market area, and it gives us the opportunity to target some lower income tenants, as well as the mix of less than 60% of area median income. So we can target slightly deeper tranches of income individuals and families. It also gives us the opportunity to raise additional financing resources to make the project happen in the first place. So when you look at it, it will be both an opportunity for us to reduce rents and to raise additional financing.
So this phase that you're coming in for, you said that was for families?
Yes,
You
phase
said family units?
2 will be 66 family units.
So the units that you have now, are they family units now?
Yes,
Okay, so it's the same thing,
same thing.
same thing. So,
The elderly population.
Yeah, so the first phase consists of 32 townhomes and 34 apartments. The apartments are in a mixed-use building.
right.
The second phase will be all townhomes.
So those apartments I think you have some 1 and 2 bedroom apartments?
Yes.
What does that rent for? Is it just like, or is that a moving target?
Our range is probably going to be a range of, say, $350 to $1,300 between 1 bedrooms at the lowest income tier and 3 bedrooms at the.
So I'm saying, but you have to qualify for those.
You do.
And that's, I mean, I think, I'm trying to get that out, that the public understands that, you have to, if your income is up here, you're not going to qualify for some of these, brand-new units, and that's the reason behind it, and
That's correct. The majority of the first phase, for example, is serving incomes less than or equal to 60% of the area median income. We have some mixed income units there.
Right.
We have some mixed income units there whereby you don't have to meet the income threshold. But the lion's share, say
So the new ones,
90% or 89% are.
so the second phase is that,
It will be income restricted,
Right.
and it'll be targeting families at or below 60% of the area median income.
so you've got, how many units right now that are completed?
66.
And out of those, how many are rented? So I've been hearing stories that you're pretty much filled up.
I'm not going to go that far,
Okay.
especially not on the record. We've received 85 applications that are in process. And 17 are approved for move-in, and 38
Are pending?
are pending.
Very good.
The others are working their way through the qualification process.
Where are you finding that the tenants that are applying for these units are coming from?
I'm not prepared to answer that question right now.
So you have no idea where they're all coming from?
I don't know where they're coming from.
Okay.
That's it.
Would you make
Very
a
good question.
guess at what percent your rents are below what market would be?
Yeah, they're quite a few $100s below what the market rent is for the highest rent unit on the site.
Percent question, I have no idea what.
We might see a 3-bedroom market rent around $1,700, and we would see our 60% units at about $1,300.
Okay, good.
So, Commissioner Dumino brought up a good point. This was all intended to be, for all intentional purposes, workforce housing. I don't want to use the term low income. I mean, I know there's another term, and I always forget that. But for Queen Anne's County citizens, because we're given a tax break. And I think, is there a way to do that? Is there a way, to say, first come priority is residents of Queen Anne's County from within the county?
I can tell you that we've not marketed the site anywhere. So, and to say that there's no signs on the highway in Anne Arundel County.
Okay.
There's no signs on the highway in Talbot County. I'm guessing that the lion's share of the folks know about the site. They drive by. The majority of our tenants have come through walk-in traffic. So I don't have any reason to believe that we're not serving the
Mike, are you
the
finding
Queen Anne's
folks calling
County.
your office to inquire about this project?
They're calling our office to inquire about this project, any project they can find. There's a big need for rental houses, and then oftentimes, we had a call last Monday, I had a call, a person that their landlord has decided not to be a landlord anymore, and she does not want to leave Queen Anne's County. And that's a big problem, because there's just not a lot of rental stock in Queen Anne's County compared to the surrounding counties.
But I think if we look at it, even, say they come from Caroline County, but they work at the Narrows, and
Which
that's
is
their
fine.
job.
Yeah.
Right. But now they become a Queen Anne's County tax-paying resident, so really, the kind of offset's gonna be there for it. So that's what I'm saying, if they're working at the Narrows or something, this is affordable and it's closer for them to get, if they're in and around, whatever the case may be, I think it's a
Right.
great
And
fit
that's
for
and that's
a lot of
basically
that.
the crux of my question, Jack, was we get that, when you speak to some of our county employees, DES and teachers and folks that work in law enforcement, it's like, where do you live? Well, I live here because I can't afford to live there. And I would much rather live in Queen Anne's County where I work, but I can't afford it. So that was really the direction my question was going, is that we finding the folks that are reaching out to you are the folks that live in other counties but work here and want to live here.
But we're getting that out, we're getting that message out, right, Mike?
Yes,
Good.
oh, yeah.
Very good.
Our staff are chomping at the bit for them to open up, as is Kathy Willis, the Department of Aging, too, for this new phase. She's very
When are you
excited.
expecting the first people to move in?
This month. The first building we'll be giving notice within the next 2 weeks for folks to move in.
So under our current COVID situation, how's that going to work out as far as folks moving in and the social distancing and?
So
Required
this
to
is
adhere to certain-
we've got a whole new set of guidelines that we're following. We did have an initial fallout on our application list as a result of some folks that might not have had employment to qualify or had to change their situations right off the bat. The wait list and interest still remains very high. But in terms of moving in, there'll be assigned time slots.
Okay.
For when the tenants will move in. It'll slow the period of time in which that building becomes actually occupied slightly, but it'll be very controlled. It's an elevator access building, so we want to be really cautious and careful about social distancing as folks are moving in. The one other thing I'll mention is that when we talk about phase 2 and we talk about the next step is that there is what we're calling technically phase 2 is the 66 family units, but we want to pursue phases 2 and 3 being the 54 unit senior building that will serve low income seniors. And so our goal is to pursue them both at the same time rather than finish one then move on to the next.
Do you have a property management company that runs it separate, or do you guys?
We do. We have a property management company, TM Associates. It's an affiliate of one of my partners in ownership.
I would say one last, just general remark, and that is, having lived in New York City where they had quite a lot of income-restricted property, which gradually over time drifted into much more affluent people who over time got there. Will there be any future reviews of income requirements or sublet agreements or whatever those other circumnavigation of the original point was?
So there's an annual recertification program with regard to tenant income and the number of tenants in the household.
Am I right, is there like a 40-year agreement? that you-
There's a 40-year use commitment on the provision of the low-income housing tax credit income limits.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? We don't have a motion. Somebody like to make a motion?
There's two of them.
There should be
There
two
should be
motions
two
there.
of them.
Move to sign the payment in lieu of taxes resolution, authorize the county administrator to sign the payment in lieu of taxes agreement between Queen Anne's County and a special purpose entity or entities to be formed to own and develop the property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So I have a question, and you may have answered it, and I apologize if I didn't catch it, but the phase 1 and phase 2 are getting the $200 credit. You're asking for $400 for the senior units.
That's correct.
Okay, and can you explain to me and the TV audience why a substantial increase?
Yeah, the nature of the financing that will finance the family units is a deeper subsidy that comes from the state and the tax credit program.
Okay.
There is a tax credit program associated with the senior building. However, it's a much reduced amount of tax credits that are provided from the state and tax credits. So we have to rely on the revenues from the property and or our ability to offset expenses.
So phase 3, well, you're going to planning and zoning for phase 2 and phase 3 same time?
Yes.
Okay. So for phase 3, which is the 54 senior units, when do you anticipate you'll be breaking ground and completing those?
So our hope and we don't have a signed qualified allocation plan from the governor this year yet, though we expect that we'll be having a competition round that will have applications due in late summer or fall. Provided we receive funding in that round, then we'll be bringing those phase 2 and 3 for formal site plan approval, engineered site plan approval over the course of the months that follow that. So I'd like to say, within 12 months to 18 months of today,
Okay.
we would be pursuing that.
Okay.
Very good. All right. Any other questions? All right, so we're moving to sign the payment in lieu of taxes resolution and authorize the county administrator to sign the payment in lieu of taxes agreement between Queen Anne's County and a special purpose entity. All those in, a special form entity or entities to be formed to own and develop the property. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Now there's a second motion. Somebody would like to read that one.
Motion 2, we move to sign the enclosed letter addressed to the Secretary Holt of the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development in support of the Green Street housing effort to receive low-income housing tax credit for the next phase of the Slippery Hill development.
Second. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Okay, Commissioners, if you want to turn to item 5 on page 16. This is the 2020 Comprehensive Plan Update contract for the replacement contract. Can I get a motion on that, please?
You want them in here first, or you want
I'll go ahead and do the motion.
you got it?
I move to hire Wallace Montgomery and Associates LLP and to enter into a contract for their services to update the 2020 Queen Anne's County Comprehensive Plan and authorize Planning Director Mike Wisnowski to sign the contract on behalf of the County Commissioners. I further move that the county adjust its budget to accommodate this contract.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Very good.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Item 6 on page 84, this is a repeat item. This is from Howard Uniform Company. This is the detention center uniform bid, and there was a conversation about this.
Yeah, I
Could it be
think
split?
this was
Yeah.
stalled until we could find out if they would be willing to, or the possibility of ordering from the 2 different vendors, because one was cheaper
On certain parts of
on
it.
certain parts of it than the other. But apparently that can't be done.
Yeah, that cannot be done, so we would recommend going with the Howard Uniform Company. They are the lowest bidder overall.
I'll make the motion, just because I'm probably the one that stalled it.
It's your fault.
I move the bid be awarded to Howard Uniforms for correctional officers' uniforms.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you for doing that research, Todd.
Okay, Commissioners, item number 7 on page 89. This is a sole source procurement from Carousel Airbus. This is for the new Vesta 911 telephone system. It is fully grant funded at $1.657 million through the Numbers Board.
Very good.
Can I get a motion on that, please?
I move to approve a sole source procurement and authorize the Director of Department of Emergency Service to execute a contract with Carousel Industries to provide a Vesta 911 phone system totaling for $1,657,053.33.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? It's all grant money.
it's all paid for.
It's all paid for by somebody else, and thank goodness for that, so. Any other discussion, any questions? Chief standing there? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Nice seeing you, Scott.
Good to see you, Scott. Thank
You were on the hot seat last week, 2 weeks ago, Scott, so I figured I'd give you a break on this one.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Moving right along on page 90, number 8 is the 2020 fireworks event, and this is an action item to decide how we want to proceed with this year's
Come on in, Steve.
fireworks display at the Kent Narrows. That's Steve Chandler,
So
Director.
should we make a motion, obviously, before we go into discussion? or-
No,
Oh,
this
okay.
is, if you want to, that's to cancel them, so,
Okay.
right now, they're on, so,
So who else, who's on and who's off on the Midshore?
Joan had made contact with our Zambelli representative, and she gave her a list of towns.
So good evening. Right now, it's half and half. Rock Hall has not made a determination yet. On the Western Shore, they all have been counseled, and I couldn't get in contact with Talbot County or Ocean City. The dilemma is with a lot of the municipalities that are counseling is because the fire departments are the ones that sponsor the fireworks, and due to their fundraising, which normally
lack thereof.
of fundraising in March, that's why a lot of them are counseling right
Okay.
now. The majority of them are pushing it either back with hopes that they can have it or counseling it. And we are fortunate enough that I did talk to them today, that they're not going to hold us to that May 15th date, because we all know that we're probably will go into phase 1, phase 2, and they're going to push it to June 1st. If we decide to postpone until next year, we will have the same price, and we will not lose any funds that our deposit that we have put down. I've been working with them a lot.
Wow.
Great, good job.
well, I
That's
guess,
2 extra weeks.
I mean, my question is, as a group, I think we want to move forward with the fireworks. Some, you know, I mean, enough is enough. So my question would be, if we got to June 30th, and they're coming out to set up everything, and the governor comes out either June 30th or earlier and says, no fireworks, who's liable then to pay? I mean, because that's not us stopping them, that's an outside source. I mean, is there an act of God in this contract?
I'm not sure about an act of God
Right.
clause in there. You know,
of
there is a
COVID.
clause as we get closer and closer to like that 5-day, there's a, really a transportation fee that you'd have to pay for
Right.
transporting everything. And then probably the rest of the contract, the penalties would go into effect, because in my opinion, the way I see it is, Zambelli is giving us an option right now to make a definitive decision without penalty to either push it to,
They've
say,
extended
October,
that 2
November,
weeks.
December, or, you know, you can go ahead and go to next year, pick a date without missing a beat. No price increase, your balance is the same, and you can go ahead and
Giving us 2
continue
more
as.
weeks.
Yeah,
Let's sit on it and see. That's good news that they'll give us 2 more weeks.
I mean,
So we make this decision.
Well, you know, again, I think there's at least 3 of us that want fireworks and want to do that, 4 of us. Anyways.
Okay.
Okay, 5 of us. So I guess right now, we're going to hold off and, you know, we'll wait till the next meeting and we'll see what
Right now, we
happens.
want them.
Because, you know, I mean, something could happen in 2 weeks from now, you know? And when we meet again, and,
You know, but
and
today's
that makes it very
conference-
feasible.
Right.
Well, today's conference call with the governor, he, you know, I asked him the question about fireworks. I said, you know, what are you going to do? He says, we don't know. You know, that's still too far away, but that's really, because of crowds, that's part of phase 3.
Right.
And he doesn't think we're going to be in phase 3 by July 1, which makes sense, but, you know, then again, he might be relaxing things to allow local health officers and
To make
governing
that call.
bodies to make those decisions, so, you know, maybe we'll see if there's any latitude in the next 2 weeks and find out how things go with
And
the
that
virus.
crowd issue is different than if you're in Montgomery County or Howard County,
Absolutely.
where everybody's sitting in a big field to watch
Right.
it. A lot of our people go out in the boats or they watch from their houses.
Boats,
And so we can be socially distant and enjoy the fireworks. The people need to see the fireworks.
I agree.
I remember years ago, you used to park in your car when they were at the Narrows
Yeah.
anyway. You
Yeah.
didn't do all the, you know, the Heritage Center.
in the back of the car
That
and
whole
watch it.
festival is what really brought that out. If you cancel that, most people are going to sit in their cars like they used to years ago,
So
Right.
then would you go ahead and decide to like block off the Narrows or the visitor center so people can't get down there? And then just allow people to either watch in the parking lots or from their boats or what have you? 'Cause the problem
Yeah,
have
we
is-
would, there would be no moon bounce, there'd be no band, there'd be
Right,
no
right.
food, there would be no concessions.
When those parking slots
Right.
were filled, you
Right.
just close it off.
Right.
So if we have 25 or 30 spots there, the first 25, 30 are in, and then after that, you got to find another place to watch them from.
You also know that those 25 or 30, when they get out of the car, they're going to get together just like a bunch of little
Well,
kids.
but I think,
the hope is they
I
watch
think we
it
could
from
start
their car.
messaging saying there's no reason to leave your vehicles, as far as, you pull up 30 minutes before they're gonna go off. I mean, you can get out of your vehicle, but, the people gotta be smart. They gotta understand that they take the risk when they do that, so.
Plus, we typically have a pretty sizable law enforcement presence there that can remind people, and by remind, I don't mean arrest people, but remind them, look, if you want to ruin things like this in this time, then go ahead and be an idiot and go out there and stand in groups of 50. But if you want to be able to continue to open things up and do things in a smart manner, then just
We have
obey
to
the
show we
rules
deserve it.
for right now. I mean,
Have you,
Temperatures.
Jamal's parking lot, that property
I
there?
was just ready to address that. So if we do, then I need to start implementing the process to secure his parking lot. And then that would be one area that they could park in
Park and watch.
and park and watch.
Yeah.
We would have to secure that.
Please do,
And we would just have to make sure that nobody would be able to walk down the lane to the visitor center.
Right.
Because obviously, if you let one person down, everybody's going to feel that they're going to have a right to go down to, and then that's when you're going to get into
just
that
block it
conflict.
off right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a big deal.
Again, that's
Park a couple
6
deputies'
weeks
cars
away.
there, and that's it.
Yeah, and let's say,
rising temperatures,
Right.
Maybe the numbers start to drop, maybe, but as it stands right now, we're gonna leave it alone for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And go that way with you.
yep,
Correct?
yep,
Good?
Yep.
Good?
absolutely.
Thanks for getting us that 2 weeks, Joan.
Yes.
Yeah, great
That's
job.
huge.
Yep,
Makes
great
it
job
easy.
getting the extra time, that's good. It's gonna pay off.
All righty.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
I'll let her know. Thanks.
All right,
We're going
Commissioners.
kicking and screaming on this one.
Item 9 on page 94 is Budget Amendment CC 32, Home Delivered Meals. This is a Department of Aging grant they received for congregate meals and in-home delivered meals, so no additional county funds.
I move to approve Budget Amendment CC 32.
Second.
You got a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioners. All right, we have 3 desk items. First one is item number 10, and this is the federal funding certificate and agreement for the second 50% of the CARES fund. This agreement basically, it has been reviewed by the county attorney. This basically says that we will spend the money in accordance with the federal law. Otherwise, we have to pay it back ourselves. So we are anxious to get this funding for our recovery. And my understanding is, once this is signed, they will wire the money to us within a matter of a few days, and we can proceed with our Phase 2 plans with our recovery from the CARE funding.
So I move that we sign the federal financing certification agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so any discussion here? I get to sign on the dotted line, and this is a beauty one, because they hold you, the calls, they talk about this. If anything goes wrong, they're dragging you into it.
$4.8 million.
$4.8 million, it's all me. Oh, nice, okay. Any other
I
discussion?
could throw a few dollars your way if it goes south, buddy.
I got a quarter.
Okay.
Remember, a few is 3.
We are moving to approve and have myself sign the federal funding certification agreement from the Maryland Department of Budget and Management. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Item number 11 is from the Queen Anne's County Housing Authority Executive Director, Katia Lindsay, and they are asking for some funding to complete a forensic audit of their books for the last 3 years. So they're asking for $30,000 from the county.
Is the audit cost more, or is the audit 30,000 and we're paying the whole thing?
Capped.
The second.
Gotcha.
There's,
The
well,
latter.
I'll do the motion and then we can discuss that. I move to approve $30,000 so that the Housing Authority can conduct a forensic audit for the most recent 3 years. But I want to add in here that we're paying for it, we own the audit. And we have we have a statutory obligation to review their books. We have the ability to go and review their books, so if we're paying for it, this has got to be an audit that's at our direction.
Okay.
Our attorney says we have a statutory what?
Right, obligation, right, to monitor them. So
How do you argue with that? You know what I mean?
Second.
Yes, sir.
No, just a question. There's no possibility of any recovery in this, is there?
So there is been, their books are a mess, is one nice way to say it. And they're trying to get this in order so that moving forward, they know what pots of money the different money is. The way it's set up, each property has to be self-sufficient. And they have a separate account, in theory, for each property. There'll be an operating account for each property. There's a main operating account for the housing authority. Then there's also another account for each property for the security deposits. Over the years, the way the financial statements that I've been privy to them talking about, the money has not probably been allocated the right way. And they're trying to figure out where the money may have been put into the wrong pot so they can get everything back into order. So that is one of the overriding things, and also to make sure that there has not been any malfeasance over the years. That's another possibility.
But it doesn't really answer the question of what, other than cleaning the books up, is that worth $30,000?
I think it is to get the housing authority back on track. We have a new executive director in there. We have,
So it's an investment.
that's what I think.
Out of love for you, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I think it's something worth doing so we can get, the housing authority has made a lot of progress in the last 3 to 4 months of, there is tremendous customer service that's put in place. The residents who live there feel like things are going better. We want to keep it like that, and we also, what the forensic audit will do is give them the controls so that going forward, we know that that money is being managed properly. We think that will also enable them to apply for grants and get money outside the county, and that's another reason to be doing this. So I think we should do it and get the housing authority to
Want it, I want it.
I think it's worthwhile.
So
And this will be a certified audit, correct?
who won the audit? Who won the bid?
They have, there were 2 estimates that they got in. I believe they're going to go for 1 more. But if we're on it, we can control who they use.
Plus, there's a baseline for the books going forward. I mean, that's the biggest thing. To me, that's worth $30,000. If you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars rolling through there now and you have no idea where they're at, 30 grand right now looks pretty good, so.
And then,
they've
of course,
been
set
trying
up
to go
systems
through,
and
so-
procedures for better bookkeeping.
Exactly.
They need to get those books in order so going forward, everything is right. And the properties are being managed properly.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve $30,000 so the Housing Authority can conduct a forensic audit of their financial circumstances for its most recent 3-year period. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Did we get, my understanding there was a fire at Fisher Manor the other day?
Yeah, it was
little
a
garbage
trash can on the second floor that caught on fire inside one of the units, so it was a non-event.
Oh, okay.
It was just smoke but no fire, as they say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Commissioner. Our final desk item, Commissioners, is item number 12, and this is a letter to the state librarian, and we're going to try to go back to the well one more time and ask for another $500,000 in fiscal ‑22 from the State Library Board as a grant. We are funding the library potentially over the 50% level, so this would reduce our county commitment. If we are in fact awarded that, this letter would certify we would match those funds, which we certainly would if we were granted the additional money for that project.
I move that the letter of intent necessary to apply for the additional construction funding through the Maryland County Public Library Capital Grants Program in fiscal year 2020 for the expansion and renovation of the Ken Island Branch Library be signed and provided to the Maryland State Library.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. That's all of our action items tonight. We can move to the presentations. And first up, we have Robbie Gill for YMCA. I think I saw him out there.
Robbie. Is he sporting a bow tie?
No, it's
No, turtleneck. Oh, gotcha.
It's a built-in mask, right?
that's right, just in case.
Yep.
How's everyone doing this evening?
Marvelous.
This is a different look. You gotta swivel to get the whole view.
Surrounded.
Right. I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to kind of share where we are. I wanted to give a quick, Robbie Gill, I'm the CEO for the YMCA of the Chesapeake. I wanted to give a quick update on the work of the Y with the COVID-19 crisis. So we, under the governor's orders, closed our facilities on March the 16th and transitioned and pivoted our work to supporting critical needs within communities. And so we reached out in every community that we're in to offer a helping hand in whatever way we could do that. And so what's really interesting is you see that work in different communities looks vastly different. So in Talbot County and Dorchester County, the YMCA is providing shelter of care for about 30 kids that are at each site that are the children of critical staff, first responders, medical staff working directly at the hospital with people that are dealing with the virus. That's a Monday through Friday program. We also are very involved across the Eastern Shore in meal delivery for seniors who are isolated, as well as families and kids who find themselves food insecure. And so in partnership with, in some cases it's the school system, in other cases it's the food bank, the YMCA is utilizing our resources for transportation to deliver meals to particular communities that are finding themselves pinched. We're also been doing food drives across all of our YMCAs. The Cecil County YMCA is an overflow site for the hospital there, depending on how heavy their load gets. And then the biggest thing we've been doing is supporting our seniors. So across all of our Ys, we provide senior programming, chronic disease for cancer survivors, patients with people with Parkinson's disease, balance and stability classes. We've been unable to offer those classes, so we've had to transition to what you guys are doing, utilizing Zoom to be able to connect to those folks. We've made over 6,000 wellness calls to support seniors who the Y is a hub for them and isolated. So it's while the Ys have been closed, we've been very busy and working really hard to make an impact across the community. We've also been continuing to work on this particular project. So last time I was here in the late fall in November, I'd let you know that we had received a $2.5 million gift from an anonymous foundation that wanted to really support the work in building a YMCA in Queen Anne's County. We've developed a capital campaign committee, and we're working regularly on our list and getting ready to launch that quiet phase of our campaign in late February when the virus really started to flow. But we have been working on a potential opportunity with a foundation. And so Jim Wright, who is born and raised here in Centerville, that you would know for sure, is connected and a trustee for a foundation, the Philip and Carol Radcliffe Foundation, and had an interest in potentially getting involved in the project. And so over the last 4 months, I've been working directly with him around what that narrative would look like and how the YMCA could meet the obligations really tied to that foundation and also make an impact in the community. Jim obviously loves Centerville. It's his lifelong home and knows the Y can have a tremendous impact. So we found out week before last that they've committed a $5 million match specifically for this project, which is an enormous win for us. So that gets us, in matching those funds, that gets us to $7.5 million currently. It's a 1-to-1 match, and the way that'll work is upon signing the grant agreement, which we'll do next week, they'll release $500,000. We've also reached out to the Anonymous Foundation to release $500,000, and we'll use that $1 million for architectural work and engineering design. I've asked Todd Mon to serve on that committee from the county to support us in that effort, so we'll have a group of volunteers and staff that'll work on that project to where we can get our engineering and architectural work completed this year with a goal of breaking ground at the beginning of 2021. The project will take about 18 months to build based on our experiences. The second phase of that gift is tied specifically to groundbreaking, and so they'll release a maximum of up to $2 million for that project at groundbreaking as long as we've matched that $2 million. If we get to groundbreaking and we haven't matched the $2 million, then we only get what we've raised. So it's imperative that getting to groundbreaking, we're at the $2 million mark to be able to do that. And then the third phase of the gift is when we cut the ribbon and open the new YMCA that we've raised the remaining $2.5 million. and then they'll release those funds. And so really, Jim's exact quote was, "I want to see this project built before I die." And so they really structured it in a way that can really push us to help our committee in raising funds to make that project happen. I will say too, we're still working directly with the county on a Department of Aging grant that will support the senior center. So this YMCA is not only a YMCA, but it's also a senior center physically located within the facility, but also providing services to seniors across the entire county. So when we talk about our Parkinson's program, our balance and stability classes, and cancer survivor programming, which are all free outreach programs, those would be programs that would be provided throughout the county wherever there's specific needs. And so one of the beauties in this is it's going to, while the Y and the senior center for Centerville will be hubbed there, you're going to have outreach work taking place throughout the county, which will make a substantial impact, which we're excited about. The second piece of that is the foundation wanted to see the YMCA engaged in work specifically around supporting small business and not-for-profits, as well as supporting individuals around fiscal literacy or financial literacy. And so there'll be a designated 1,400 square feet with 2 conference rooms and 3 offices that'll be used where, let's say, you had a small business who needed some help or support as it relates to tax law change, or maybe they're in an EEOC claim issue, or maybe they're just trying to figure out how to better navigate online media and how to better market what they're doing. That we could leverage the resources of our 40,000 members to provide connection around mentoring and support and coaching and training, whereas in many cases, not-for-profits and smaller businesses can struggle if they're not large enough to have their own HR person, or to have someone other than maybe a part-time bookkeeper or an accountant. So you get into a tax code issue or something like that could be challenging. And literally today's workforce looks vastly different than it did 15 or 20 years ago. And so how do you connect to millennials and so forth and so on? So we built that into the project, and I think it's going to be a really neat addition as well. So we're really excited about that. So really, although the project's taking some time, I mean, that's part of it. We saw the same thing in St. Michael's. I think it's well-rounded, and it's going to make a tremendous impact in the community. Last thing I might mention is I got a chance to spend some time with Jim right over at his house last week, and we were chatting and talking, and he was sharing some of his childhood memories about how everyone spent their summers at Conquest Beach, where that was like the place where kids went and hung out and connected to one another. And, the Y can serve that same role, and it does in the communities where we have a facility, where it becomes the front porch of the community, where everyone is welcome, no one is turned away due to financial limitations. The site is ideal for that, even though it's Center County, and some folks out on Kent Island may say that's too far away. I think what you're going to find is the Y will be a hub that brings all 3 communities, North County, the middle of the county, and the island, all together as a place to connect to one another, which is powerful. So I'm excited that we're on the doorstep of making this happen. I was thinking back, my first meeting in Queen Anne's County was a few months after I moved here in 2005, when the commissioners at the time were talking about a field house way back when, and Commissioner Wilson was actually at a meeting eons ago over at the Parks and Rec facility. I can remember that was probably 06, somewhere around there. So it's taken us time to get to the place where we can get this done, but we've had, in essence, $7.5 million committed to this project that isn't directly tied to the county, but believes deeply not only in Centerville, but Queen Anne's County as a whole, and the work of the YMCA. And so now it's just a matter of us doing the legwork we need to do with working with Todd and our team to make sure we've got a good engineering and architectural plan for the site. The site's low-lying. If you drive out there, you see the county building sits kind of high up. The Y property is low. We know site costs there are going to be substantial, in the $1 million to $1.5 million range, just to bring the site up to grade. But to go ahead and get that work hammered out and tackled to where we can break ground in the first of the year is where we are. I had a meeting with several of our key volunteers today, and everyone's just over the moon excited. And I can't be more thankful for Jim and the Radcliffe Foundation and believing in this work and how it's going to really be transformational for Queen Anne's County. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I know you've got in your packet just kind of our case piece and also kind of our checklist of where we're rolling through that. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody?
I don't have any.
Sir,
Mr. Wilson?
I think you came before us 6 years ago. I expressed some concern as to whether this would get done in my lifespan, and we're still in a race. I hope you win.
We'll get it done. I have no doubt. So if we break ground in the winter, then summer of '23 will be open, and that'll be, I think, the other thing is this pandemic has just been pretty rough on everybody. I mean, I think a lot of us has realized just how much we maybe didn't appreciate just being amongst a group, even if you're in the grocery store, that you could physically pass people without being paranoid and just to wink and say hey and to connect to one another. I think we'll have a greater appreciation for any modified resemblance of what that once was, even if we can't shake hands and hug like we once did. To just be able to physically see someone face to face and acknowledge one another will be great. I think the Y is going to be a great place to celebrate that coming together in the community. It's a perfect time for it to happen. So I believe in divine intervention tremendously. Gifts like that don't happen without divine intervention, and it's happening at the time that it's supposed to happen. And you'll be there for that. It's going to be good.
We'll see.
Maybe we'll even be at a point where you and I can high five whenever we pull out the gold shovels and throw a little dirt around.
Let me ask you a little bit more specific question. So the 5 is a match, and what would you expect to raise out of the general public? What would you hope to get out of the county? Do you have any anticipations of how you intend to get the match together?
Sure. So my thought is without a doubt within the county, through a general campaign, we could raise half of that amount with no problem. I think if we had to raise the full amount, it would be a heavy lift, especially when you look at where we are right now with everything that's going on. But I think half, without a shadow of a doubt, we could raise that, and I believe we could raise that. If the county played a role, I believe we could raise that before the end of the year and lock everything in. And then the only thing we would have left to do is the grant work that we're working on now.
And that grant work, Stevie, counts towards the match. So if we were to...
Well, the grant, actually, I verified, the grant work doesn't, so it's outside of that bucket.
Okay, so the other day we talked about it was,
Yeah.
okay.
So
But the grant work was, the grant part of it we were talking about, is that still in play, that would be
Yes.
the site work money?
Well, so there's 800,000 that we could apply for through Community Development Block Grant. The piece of that is making sure that we could get it, because you would do the site work. You wouldn't lump it with the whole project, you would just do the site work first, because there's a lot of logistics around that money, around Davis-Bacon wages and a bunch of other stuff. You would want to make that neat and clean. And we ran into an issue in St. Michael's around that. So you would, if those funds were available and we decided to get those, you would do site work first and the building right after that. But I know that Kathy's working on getting more information on that now, and we may decide that we'd be better served to not apply for those funds and move forward. We definitely will apply for the Department of Aging funds. We received those funds in St. Michael's. It's a perfect fit and model with the YMCA and the Senior Center in the same location. The Board of Public Works has lifted that model up as a great way to partner and collaborate, because you're bringing seniors into one place. So not only are Y members who are older adults connecting to Senior Center programs and services, but then Senior Center participants are also connecting to Y programs and services. So you're really kind of creating a one-stop shop, so to speak, where they get all the resources that they need.
I have to say you've excelled at big gifts, but in my estimation, not much has been seen in terms of a program.
We haven't asked a single person for a gift yet, because without the big gifts, there is no Y. So securing those larger gifts put us in a position to be able to have the community phase of the campaign. Typically you try to raise about 80% of the funds through those larger gifts, and then the 20% go through the community phase. But that's an essential part of the campaign, because you want everyone to have buy-in to the project to where it's their YMCA. And so that's coming. That's going to take place The community phase typically takes place right around when you break ground. And then it creates momentum and excitement, and you know that it's coming, and you do it. So I think in St. Michael's, as an example, we had about 250 donors, but 6 of those people made up 80% of the total. But we also had kids who saved up their money and mowed grass and donated $50. And that $50 is just as valuable as the person who had the capacity to write a $10,000 check, because for that kid, they're the ones who walk over there after school every day now. And they played a role in making that happen.
Is it your sense still that the general outlook of whatever was expressed in the MUI is still feasible? In other words, the pricing and the inclusion and so on in terms of pool use?
Yes, sir, and it's my understanding. I think there's a general consensus that coming out of this may be the best time to build. Whereas when we, as an example, when we built St. Michael's, the construction costs were at a premium.
More from an operation?
Yes, sir, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. So a little bit on operating, we had 41,000 members going into the COVID crisis. We've seen a reduction of our membership of about 25% since March 16th. 13% of those folks have just put their membership on hold. The other 12 have terminated. I think what you'll find is you have 2 buckets. So for seniors who are immune compromised, they're not really sure what coming back looks like, or if I lost a job and I don't know if that business is going to stay open, I'm not really sure. Everyone else is kind of sitting and waiting, and then they'll come back. The Y will provide whatever assistance is necessary, and to make sure no financial limitations keep someone from participating. And we're building a operational plan now to make sure that we can meet social distancing requirements and people can participate. Operationally, and as an organization, the Y has a $11.5 million endowment with another $6 million in future commitments. And so our objective is to continue to build the endowment to where I don't know that any organization is ever impervious to something this crazy, but that we have the financial capacity to always weather these types of things. So the YMCA is fine and will always be here. It's been here since 1857. It's not going anywhere.
I understand, but we didn't have distancing since 18.
Yep. I'll be concerned if I come back to you in December and we're not open. That would be a problem. But I don't think we'll get that far along. The Y did apply for a Paycheck Protection Program grant and receive that. So our staff, we have a little bit operationally. We have 51 full-time staff, and the rest of our staff are part-time. Those part-time staff miss 1 week of pay, so they continue to be on payroll the entire time through this, even though the Y is not open. So we've worked really hard to take care of our folks. But you're right. I hope to never see anything like this again. It's not been fun.
Anything else?
Robbie, thank you.
Go get it.
Thank you guys for everything you do. I appreciate
Outstanding.
Yeah.
it. Y'all have a great evening and be safe.
You too, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Robbie. All right, Commissioners, next we have Jonathan Seaman for our capital budget and decision on proposed budget. We have a separate binder here for that discussion, and I think Jonathan, here he comes with our...
I didn't get one.
Chief Budget Officer, Brittany Moran, so come on in. Oh, she's going to run the...
You're right here.
Oh, right here? Okay, right here. We're good? All right.
The Word file there for the,
Well, clean up first. You know, who knows where he's been. Shouldn't say that. It was his fault, not mine. Okay. Shall I start?
Okay?
The floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. We have the budget work session, and first, just take a look at the schedule so you can see kind of where we are, where we're going. So the budget schedule shows this is May 12th, and so what we're going to do tonight is go through this notebook and any changes you want to make, and the result of that will be the release of your proposed budget. And then following that, we have the public hearing, which is 2 weeks from tonight, which is the official tax rate hearing. And following that, there are potentially 2 more work sessions, and then the adoption on June the 9th. So just to make clear, this budget, so I mean, what you're approving tonight is not the final budget, and, you know, you have until June the 9th to, you know, make changes to that until we have an adopted budget. So let's go to the, start with the table of contents. And so you can see what we're going through. You've seen many of these things before, but there are a few changes and adjustments that I want to point to. Next, on page 1 and 2, there's a letter, which is a transmittal letter, which I leave to you to, as you please. You could sign this, or you could change it, or whatever you want to do. But, I mean, I think the idea is we probably want to release this budget tomorrow, so that's kind
I
of...
believe that letter's been circulated and signed.
Pardon?
That letter has been circulated and signed.
Oh, okay. All right. And we'll keep going. Page 3, this is the revenue, and so the budget that's being proposed, if you look at the FY21 budget column, and it shows $143,796,560, and what you would see that's perhaps different from before is what's highlighted, and that's the about $2 million in revenue stabilization funds. And we'll get to showing kind of the revenues versus the expenditures. But basically, to kind of summarize that, you remember we had a county administrator's budget that was almost $150 million, and then we'll show you what reductions were made, and that got the budget down to about $144 million. But we're saying the revenue is about $2 million below that, and so the revenue stabilization fund is what is used to balance to the expenditures, which is about $143.8 million.
Jonathan, do you perceive us using any stabilization for completing FY20?
Yes. I mean, the projection for this year is maybe $2 million below budget, so potentially $2 million in FY20 as well.
Okay. If it isn't $2 million, if the glass is half full and it's only $1 million, would that adjust? It would leave FY21 pretty much where you still have it right now.
It would still be the
We would
same.
just not remove another $1 million out of the stabilization.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. It would, yeah, that would just be less use in 20, but it wouldn't change it by 21.
Okay.
So on page 4 and 5 are the expenditures. So you have on page 4 the departments. None of this has changed. Of course, the Board of Education is at maintenance of effort. And what you see highlighted are, let me just point out a couple of those. This line, the transfer to capital, that's highlighted because there was $1.2 million reduced out of that line item, which was where we put the pay-go.
Okay, where are we? Where are we? On page 4?
Page 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
in
okay, I got
the
you.
box where you have the yellow highlight, which is, so this transfer to capital was reduced by 1.2 million. And so that's why that's highlighted, and that was for capital. The next highlighted item is the salary lapse, which is a negative number. And so it's higher because of the freeze. So there's some assumed savings from the hiring freeze in FY '21. So that was something that was adjusted. The contingency account, it was much higher earlier, and primarily because that's where we put the money for county employee compensation increases for cost of living and pay for performance, which is now gone. So that's why the contingency is highlighted. And we did ask the departments to, county administrator sent something to the departments to ask them to identify potential savings in FY '21 of 5% of their budget. And so there are some assumed savings there. Now, we haven't really, we haven't seen that or been able to evaluate it yet, but there's some assumed amount that we will, between now and June, we'll have to figure out. So it's not intended to take 5% from everybody. It's just people giving us their ideas as to what they can save, and then we'll make some recommendations to you as to, which ones we think make sense. It could be, reductions to overtime or things like that, improvements, and then we'll have to sort of adjust that at the end. So then we get to all the other funds, which I'm going to skip over because I don't think we really have much to say about that. These other funds, primarily are non-general funds, but some of the funds do have general fund
27
transfers like aging and housing and community services, things like that. But there's nothing really remarkable in any of that. So then on page 27, you've seen this chart before. So there are no changes that have been made to any of these numbers, but so the highlighted columns are the FY '20 and the FY '21 revised, and these are let's call them the revenue write-downs as a result of the pandemic. So FY '20, which at an earlier time was estimated at about 147 million or 2 million above the budget, and now is projected at about 2 million below the budget. And the FY '21 revised, we came out, if you'll remember, we started at about 150. That's the FY '21 approved budget, which isn't really the approved budget, but it was the county administrator's budget was at the 149.7, and then the revised is right about at 142 million. So that's where we're saying we think revenues will be for FY '21. But as you know, it's still kind of early and there isn't a whole lot of data so I think those numbers, have to be sort of fluid as we go through. Page 28 shows you how we got from the county administrator's budget to the county commissioner proposed budget. And so just to identify, I think we talked about these really, but there's the pay-go reduction of 1.2 million in the capital budget. Oh, right, the enhancements, which we'll show you in a minute too. But all the new positions that were requested for FY '21 were taken out. The employee compensation, we talked about that. That's mostly the cost of living adjustment. There's another reduction. We had another $1 million in the contingency account, which we took out. And then I mentioned the departmental savings, projected to be about $600,000. We talked last time about some savings in the MALF program, so that's $300,000. And then there's some additional savings we're projecting from the hiring freeze, and that gets you to total reductions of 5.9 million, which gets you down to 143.8. So that's really what the budget is. And since we had revenues that were not at that level, they were closer to about 142. That's why the revenue stabilization kicks in to make up that $2 million difference. And So you would vote on that the next time, and there is an actual requirement for the use of the revenue stabilization fund that you have to vote. In fact, it takes a 4/5 vote to approve the use of those funds, and you have to kind of specify why you're using them, which is in sort of emergencies, or, the clause that says kind of as the county commissioners deem necessary. So we'll just have that sort of vote next time. So those are the reductions. So going to page 29, this is the capital budget. So we've got kind of three different sort of looks at the capital budget for you to look at. This is the FY21 budget, which is on pages 29 through 38. And that's followed by the 6-year program, which is on page 39 through 47. And then following that is the capital budget reductions. And so that starts on page 48. That shows you what the departmental requests were. You may remember that we had numbers that looked like, the original request was about $51.9 million. And then there was the county administrator budget, 10 million less, 41.9. And then I mentioned there was another 1.2 million. This you can see on page 53. So that shows you the 51.9, the reduction of 10 million, 41.9, another reduction of 1.2 million, which leaves the county commissioner's budget of $40.6 million. But you can see, I think you see in your book, there's a note, which, you had asked about kind of what the number was. I mean, that number's got other stuff in it, mostly like ski. So, but the number for sort of more what we call the general capital, which doesn't include all those enterprise funds, is $29.7 million. So going to the capital budget, I'm just going to sort of walk through a couple, because we haven't really focused on this tremendous amount. So if you all have any comments or want to say anything, starting on page 29, and just noting a few of the things that are probably, I suppose of interest. We do have $800,000 for the YMCA.
But that's, when you say we, it's flowing through us, it's state funds.
Yeah, that's grant money.
Correct.
Yeah, it's flowing through us. We do have a line item for the Housing Authority facilities at $250,000.
Is that, now what is that, what project is that for? Is that to repair the mold remitter?
Is that
Is that
Riverside?
the crawl space,
Look, can you call that up on call up the screen? Call up the individual.
Well, we already approved the other money.
Yeah, so did I.
For the
Well,
remediation.
we had, I think, it was beyond the initial project that we've been working on. So, would be under general services.
I thought the mold remediation was 250 that we approved, right, or something?
Closer to 260, yep.
Yeah, keep going, yeah. Okay.
I can't see that.
This project provides for the capitalization of housing facilities which, under the management of the Housing Authority, have fallen into disrepair. Facilities include Foxtown Apartments, Terrapin Grove Cottages, Graysonville Terrace in Graysonville, and Riverside Estates.
Yeah, that was the money requested by the Housing Authority folks to continue maintenance, routine maintenance that has fallen behind schedule ongoing into the future. And we may be a bit behind on the mold remediation project, so that's what that project is for.
Well, I mean, do we want to go through these line item now, or like the Liberty Building, what are we putting $200,000 in here for?
Brittany, go back to that, the Liberty Building also. Yeah, I mean, you might as well, you can look at them now if you want. I mean,
Same with the historic,
yeah, the historic courthouse. Look at the, that is also in general services. Go to their, that master spreadsheet that they have. Yeah, so let's find the Liberty Building. Okay, yeah, make it a little bigger. Okay.
You're extending your office, Jim.
This project requests funding for the program and construction of renovation to replacement of the original construction components, mostly HVAC, I think. Program which commenced in FY19. FY21 improvement includes rooftop HVAC unit, replacement construction, and related roof replacement.
Well, I'd like to see that pushed out and not bonded right now. $200,000 on the bond.
Yeah, but the job says, that, the rooftop unit's $150K, roof replacement's $50K. Oh, FY23, okay, I see what you're saying, okay.
You're saying push it out to,
Well, I'm just, we have a bond of over 19 million, and that's just too much.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's just too much. So what are we, the last,
We've been less than 9 million the last 2 years, so we're gonna double down in 1 year?
it's,
This guy.
well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a big number. It was not sort of unplanned in the sense that we knew we're gonna have at least a few major projects, detention center and the library, so our, multi-year projections did show this as being, sort of a,
well, we've got the Board of Ed of a little over 7 million in the capital side, and what are we normally running, over the
I
last?
think last year was 5.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to look at some historical data on how much, I mean, it'd be nice, and we've always talked about this, coming in every year, your bond at the same number.
Right.
But,
Well,
that makes
I
it
mean,
difficult.
It actually shows on this year's operating side budget, because we saved $1.4 million in debt service. So what we've been doing has been working. And that's 1.4 that went back to operational right now.
Debt service is getting cheaper all the time, but I have a much darker opinion about where the whole economy is going to be than most people in the stock market, but we're going to see next year. I think this is going to be an alarming year.
Oh, yeah. I don't
I
doubt
don't
it.
think anybody disagrees with that.
I wouldn't be surprised as we go along that we scissor a lot of this stuff. So, we'll see.
Well, let me just say, I mean, if you're identifying these items, take out of the bonds, I'm going to say they're going to go in FY22 because it's not like you can move it into some other funding source.
I agree.
Because we're maxed out
I get
in-
it. That's what I mean. So, to look at that versus what we have in FY22 now.
Right. Well, do you want to vote, I mean, so, I've got the Liberty Building,
200.
200, the Housing Authority, these are just ones you mentioned, and the Historic Courthouse, I mean,
Well, like county facilities, again, I mean, I guess, I don't know if we want to do that. If we have access to the same thing you're looking at,
yeah,
to make those decisions at what you think that, or have, task you and Todd to go back through and look and say, look, you need to get $4 million off of this.
4 million?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, the last 2 years, we were at like 12.6, 12.7.
Right.
Excuse me, 17, 18, we were 12.6, 12.7. Last 2 years, we were about 9.6.
Right.
Right.
Well, we can give you some options and come back with the next work session
Yeah.
and present that to you, if you'd like.
I mean, going into this year, I think, at least in my mind, we had the detention center we knew. We were going to try and make the library work. And again, I was all on board pre-COVID, but I don't know where I sit with that right now in my mind. And, you know, and we have our asphalt overlays, which we're gonna do, because we don't want the roads to fall apart. We've seen what happens when that happens 6, 7 years ago. So, you know, in my mind, we're at 8 million there. Now, I know we always have some other stuff that goes into this, but, man, this is it's a big lift in a bad time.
I agree with you, and I think also that if it were up to me, and if I knew that we could recapture the funding on the detention center a year later, I wouldn't mind pushing it back a year.
But I thought they said we could move that. I thought they would.
The detention center, we can move.
We can.
Yeah.
The library is.
The library's the one that didn't give us any
The
leeway.
detention center could be pushed.
Right, so I mean, because we still haven't, we don't know how many beds we're gonna have.
We're not anywhere with it, so
Right.
we could not mess up our funding.
So, I mean, I agree. So if it's not gonna hurt us financially and they're gonna hold that grant money, I'm for pushing it off a year.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do.
I'm all in on that one.
That's the detention center.
Okay, that's 2.6 million.
Right.
In FY '21. So that's on page 31. There is another, I'm just sort of pointing out sort of the larger,
And Jonathan, Scott's not here, but the CAD replacement, has to be done? Is that a 1-year lump sum, or is that a
it
2-year
is
project?
that's the main piece of that, I think.
Right, that's
The CAD
1.5.
replacement,
I would say that's a yes.
we have
No,
500,000.
Not to not
22.
fund it, but I'm just wondering, how long is the project take? Because if it's
It's
like the
got-
radios, they took 4 years. So if this is
No,
a
this
2-year
is two, it's
project.
got 1,000,005 in '21 and 500,000 in '22. But
we
we've
ma-
sort of looked at that as pretty much a necessary,
No, it is necessary, but I'm
Right.
saying, can we do $1 million and $1 million? Million this year, $1 million next year. That pushes 500 to next year.
Yes, got that.
Just questions to ask, that's all.
Jonathan, since you're quicker at it, what's 22 look like right now, bond-wise?
It doesn't have the bond, I was just looking at the bond, it's not there.
call up the capital summary.
You got the 6-year plan. It should be on there, right?
Well, this
It just
year
gives
doesn't
a
have the
total.
funding sources, it just has the totals. But we can call it up here. The,
It's 27, Jim, or 26, Jim, is what it's showing.
yeah, the summary, which is under, oh, it's under the commission, yeah, it's under this work session. Yeah, it's in there.
Where are we on the bond right now, Jonathan, with what we have outstanding? Do you know?
Ooh, let's see, maybe 130 million?
And we're due to retire, what, 7.5 this
We're
year?
retiring, yeah, 7 or 8.
Good with that.
124.
Oh, yeah, so look up 20, do the tab for 22. Doesn't seem to want to do that. It's frozen, that's what happened before, too.
I got a hammer in the van, I'll be back. That's that thing.
Number's too big, that's why it's frozen.
They put pound signs up for it
Let
instead.
me, yeah, I don't really have that with me. You might have to.
Well, I mean, you can again, you can get this. So
We'll get it for you.
I'm just, what we don't want to do is push so much there where we have the same problem there as we have this year.
Yeah, right.
You know, so. And I mean, I look at the public fiber, it's at $500,000. So, I mean, that's not matching grants that we have to hold in there for anything else, but my point is, if we could use some of that CARES,
CARES money, yeah, we might be able to do that.
so,
Yeah, we should be able to shift that money out, much like we're doing with the ambulance. We should be able to shift money over from
Correct.
fiber, for broadband,
Right.
from CARES, and then eliminate that. I agree, that's.
right, so I mean, that's an option there.
Yeah, okay, I mean, right, so the ones I was sort of pointing out, right, well, that was one I had sort of circled, right? You want to, that's one we kind of put in there and associated with the franchise fee, but you're right, we do have it in the CARES grant, so.
Right.
What about the athletic track? What is the story on that? I thought.
Where are you at?
Athletic track, 322,000.
I don't know of any tracks that we're doing.
It'll be all right.
What page is that, Jack?
That is on page
35, I'm
35.
sorry. I should have told you, yeah, 35.
Yeah,
Is that stuck, or can you look that up?
35,
Excel is all
total
stuck?
parks. Where do you see a track?
I think it's gonna be.
The athletic
Last
track
line item,
is under
athletic track,
parks.
322 under bonds.
It's under 322,000, On page 35 is the last item in
I wonder if
parks.
that's.
Can't get in there?
Ken Islands.
Can you restart it, maybe? Is it?
I don't know, Jack. I don't have an answer there. But they will. Once they could be able to pull it up.
We can pull it up, but we're kind of locked out at the moment, so.
And then the athletic field lighting for 250,000, is that replacement or are we doing
No,
new?
those were new ones.
So we could actually hold those off.
And that was actually 400,000, I think, to start with, and it got cut back.
But I'm saying that's a project we could actually hold out a year. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
Which one you talking about?
The athletic field lighting on 34, page 34, for 250,000.
Okay.
Now, Jonathan, real quick, and I know they're on here, but there was more in here. What did we commit to the state for the 50/50 on the board? Do you remember what that number was? Because this seems higher to me than,
Oh, well, okay, so the ones that were for the board, the big one is the 2.4, this is on page 33, the Kent Island High School roof replacement was 2.4 million.
and that was one in the letter that we agreed to,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
And the other two they're on page 34, I think they have X's by them, actually. The Sudlersville chiller replacement, 184,000, and the fire alarm replacement, 182. So those are the ones that were in the letter. But I'm sorry, also on page 33, the Bayside Elementary window and door replacement, that was one that was in the letter too.
Okay.
So those were in the letter.
So that's actually roughly hard cost there. You're looking at about 3 million of committed, basically committed money.
Yeah, I mean, the other ones that you see here, okay, well, you look at the athletic, let's go back to that then. We're sort of jumping around, but we'll come back to the board.
Where are we at? Back to 38?
Look at the
35, page 35.
The parks project we were looking at was
Track.
a track. You have athletic, it's not the field work, it's athletic track.
And that's another thing that's a little bit, why would it be under Parks and not under Board of Ed? It's their track. I mean, I know we maintain all that, but I guess it goes under our bond,
Not on there?
under the county parks.
Again, you sure it's not on there? That's what it'd be.
See, was it, well, I can't remember, wasn't there a grant associated with Queen Anne's fixing that track ever?
No, I think this is for Kent Islands. I think theirs is in much worse shape, because Queen Anne's was done 4 or 5 years ago.
But we just didn't move it because of the field, that's all.
Look at the
We
parks
didn't-
individual
We didn't make it bigger
projects.
because of the field, where they wanted to
Right.
originally.
We never touched
We
it.
never got that money.
No,
Okay.
right. Because that would have moved the bleachers, moved the lights.
Right. Much more cost, right.
Right, all right, well, we can't find that. We'll have to get back to you on the athletic track.
And Jonathan, the Kent Island, the library expansion, we're showing 3.7, but are we carrying over the match from last year? Because wasn't it supposed to be just 2.5 this year, right? Or is that wrong?
No, this does not include the carry forward, so this was what we said was, yeah, that would be the county share. That's in addition to what we had in current year.
So, but to make the grant right, we just had a match, correct? 2.5? Does that sound right?
Yes,
Right.
that's right, but we had, I mean, the total cost we were looking at was
8.5. So we
8.5,
could
yeah.
push one, because the project's not going to be done before this next budget cycle, so we could push 1.2 off to 22 as well. And then it would be an even number over the 2 years, right? 2.5.
Could do that. I mean, if you think, yeah, I mean, right, because we're not going to finish it in
We're not going to finish
21.
it fiscal 21.
We won't have finished it by June of 21.
No.
So we could do that without jeopardizing the grant, because we'd still match the grant.
Okay. So that's another 1.2 with the detention center.
Okay, so well, we couldn't find the Parks one, but under Board of Ed,
That's 33, right? Page 33.
That is page 33 and 34. The other is in the bonds. Now, the comprehensive building assessment, that's on page 33, is $804,000. That's what they did from the study that they did.
Now, so we got that original study, what's that been, 3 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
So do we get updates on what they've punched off of that thing over the last 3 years? I mean, they come back, I think they asked for...
Sid has it, you can get it.
Okay,
Sid-
but I mean,
Sid
they
does.
asked for 804 basically every year, right? And because that was what we figured out over 10 years, that's what it was gonna work out to be. So I'm just
They
curious.
asked for actually $1.7 million.
So almost double then.
So we took 900,000 out to get to that 804.
And what was the normal ask previously? I thought it was only about 800,000.
I think it was, I think at most we put in $1 million, 800 to $1 million.
So this was probably more project specific this year?
You have to look at their specific plan, it's very detailed, but you'd have to look at what they put in the $1.7 million.
Okay, all right.
But so we kind of cut that one in half. Let's see. There's 300,000 in security that we left in. I think they had requested 360,000. We put in 300,000.
But this is showing 4.7 to the bond for the schools. Board of Education, 4.7.
And another 2 under fund balance.
Yeah, I was talking about the
Pay go?
7 million was the total
Yeah, okay,
fund,
Right, right.
the bonds plus the other. Yeah, now the transportation replacement is 2 buses, I believe. Right?
So,
So that's what's there.
Steve, we got, I mean, we're caught up on the roads. We could all skip one year,
We could, but.
you know? Just food for thought. I mean, we could all skip one year on the asphalt and
Well, see, that's what I was going to say to Jim. When I asked Shane the other day, why don't we just bond the asphalt and try to somehow shift, if, we're not going to do the tar and chip, but at least shift it over to the pay-go? Because he said the asphalt's lasting 20 years. So if it makes sense to bond the asphalt, but try to move the tar and chip over to the other side if we can. In my opinion, because the tar and chip, he said, is lasting 7 to 9, depending on the
That's right.
service seal and how it holds up. So-
No, but I'm saying, you know, we're caught up and we could, if we wanted to, we could have a savings of 1.5 right there and skip
saying-
asphalt for 1 year.
But I'm saying do the asphalt, because that asphalt, that's counting the tar and chip, I think, there, in that
Excuse me?
number. Yeah, I think it is, because that number we had from him the other night was separated, was a lot less than that on the asphalt.
Yeah, that's everything, it's
No,
everything.
right.
Right, so what I'm saying is cut the tar and chip out of it, but keep doing the asphalt, because everywhere we keep doing the asphalt, we're upgrading tar and chip a lot of times, so we're actually getting out, we're making 20-year roads at that point, which should lead to less maintenance. I don't know, that's,
Well,
I hate to just,
let me add this point to this, Stu. I don't think this thing's gonna be over for a year. I don't think it's gonna be over in 2 years. So I hate giving up stuff that we ought to keep doing regularly, as though we were hopping to, it's kind of a bridge to 1 year, but I don't think it's gonna be 1 year. So I'm not crazy about giving up stuff that needs to be.
No, it's just the option is,
I think you see
you
the
know,
point.
we add more debt or we cut it out, so.
Yeah, I'd rather-
That's,
yeah.
I get it, I get it.
Save your road.
Yeah, so that was one, they requested 2.1, and we put $1.5 million in there, but,
Just, you know, I think that also, whatever we remove from the capital side and/or the operating side, after you adjusted it after the county administrator's budget,
Yeah.
if we could keep that in a separate tab,
absolutely.
because, you know, we don't know what the federal government's going to do. I mean, they're working on their next one. So if we are able to get backfilled and we can pay for some of these things and get them done, so we don't push them down further, we just want to be able to have an easy access to, what did we take out of there? Let's bring it
Right.
back and just have a record of it.
Because he's got the roll-up sheet in the back, which is really nice. I don't know if you got back, we haven't got back that far, but he's got the roll-up sheet of what he's already cut. But if you could just do like a one-liner
Right.
of each
Yeah.
line item, where you've cut, what you've cut from the original, that would be
Correct.
awesome.
They want original, then they slashed again, and then now they want the county commissioner slash, and here we are slashing again, and just to keep the list, and that prioritizes it going back into,
Exactly.
you know, try and take care of some of this.
Yep.
So,
Can I just add one other thing? Right now, you can't buy, you'll never buy asphalt cheaper than now because of the
Agreed.
price of oil.
Oh,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying, so, yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot more mileage out of that 1.6 or whatever it is now than we were 4 years ago, that's for damn sure.
Yep.
okay, so you're saying, okay, well, so you want to have the reductions in identified sort of separately, but both operating and capital, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but just do them as a spreadsheet. You've got the back spreadsheet you got's nice, except it's just more than it needs to be, just what it was originally, what was reduced, and where, you know, so we know what the reductions are, basically.
Right, you've got total requested reductions, county administrator budget, county commissioner's reductions, county commissioner budget. And now we're adding another line to this round that we're doing now to try to get that down. You know, I think if we get it to 14, I think I could live with 14, just can't live with 19. Yeah,
So you want to get this down to, from 19 to 14?
I would, I mean, I don't know what the rest of the guys want to do.
I want to see it at night, so you know where I'm at.
Yeah, I know.
I can live with 14.
Yeah, I know you do, and I wish we
All right.
could, but that's too much cutting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can do that. I guess the question is sort of one of timing, since we were going to, this was going to be your proposed budget, which we said we were going to release, and then, of course, you could cut it later, so the question is.
Right.
I would say just put it, let's release it and get it out there now, and then
Right.
You're okay with this as it
Yeah,
stands?
We can work on the
Absolutely.
costs. We know what they're going to be.
Right.
Okay. All right, so it'll be reduced for the approved budget.
We
So,
can get yelled at to the hearing for a $19 million bill.
That's yelled at us through our TV or.
For Zoom though, so.
They got to yell at Bruce, and then he's got to tell it to us.
We'll make Bruce explain it.
Yes, exactly.
So you want to present this budget at the hearing next week without these reductions?
I think that's fine.
Or in 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, it depends if you're ready for it. I mean, that's up to you.
oh, I mean, we can get you something before then, but this will
Yeah.
be sort of your official
This-
budget of
yeah.
record.
If you
at that
release this,
time.
this will be what's out there that we would more or less present.
Right.
Well, then I would, if you can get it to 14, then get it to 14, and then we can always cut
Then
from there.
release it. And then release it, yeah.
Oh, that's fine, but you made it sound like we need to get this out with the
Well,
letter,
I mean,
right?
our schedule is, yeah.
We're
that
backing
you-
the schedule up. I think we just
If you
need
do
to.
the schedule, you would release this, that would be what you'd show at the public hearing, although we could even show a slide at the public hearing of like proposed reductions.
There you go.
You want to do that?
Sure. What, you know, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Whatever's easier for you, and you know,
To meet the
the
time.
Probably
message gets
easier
out
to
there
go
that
with
it's.
this.
What's that?
It's easier to go with this as it stands now, without the reductions, but then do the reductions and.
That's fine.
For
I
the
mean, you know, I
hearing.
mean, just who looks at that and will perceive that we're going to bond for 19 million when in fact we're not. So that's all. That's easy enough.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we know that we're going to be cutting at least 5 million off of there.
Explain it later.
Right,
Right.
but you can say that at the hearing too when you give your
Sure.
speech.
Right.
Let me just, okay, so in terms of the capital, we were sort of going through that, so I was kind of highlighting, we left off with the Parks Department, and we were going to look at the athletic track,
Right.
and I think you were, right, you were going to push out the athletic field lighting. So going on from there, I guess there, just in terms of, there is the, under the Bay Bridge Airport, which is page 36, which is really more or less a public works project, but at the fuel depot, the 312,000, and that's, I just highlighted because it was maybe a larger amount, but I think that was something that they seem to think is definitely necessary to do.
The
The fuel-
airport?
The, under the fuel depot.
I
Airport.
think we have a choice, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's a federal.
And then next is the,
Can you
yeah, the
find?
1.5,
Were you able to find 22's capital bond? Were you able to get into that
I'm
funding?
sorry. Oh, yeah, go back to the summary.
It's a whole lot of files.
And honestly, Jim, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I would take all these capital equipment replacement numbers and set them to the side for now.
I want to see what, all we're doing is pushing it down the
Yeah,
road,
so
and I
go
just want
down
to
to
see
the
what the
end.
road's looking like, that's all.
Down to the total. It's 11? It's 11 million.
So next year's is already, right now, is 11. Right. That's, I mean, so what we push, we don't want to,
We have to see what's, next year is always a little.
This year just got stuff because of the library and the detention. We knocked the detention out.
Something else I missed that way.
but there must be, the detention must be in there also for 11, since the process has already started.
I think, I
Yeah, how
would
much
have
of
thought
that's- how much of
detention
this-
was more than 2 this year. It doesn't seem to me right.
Detention center. Can you look up the individual item? That would also be under general services?
I think part of that, Steve, is that when it was in before, it was showing everything before we knew what the grant was. So I think it just had the total in there, right? Or a guesstimate from last year. That's why it seemed higher.
I thought it was like 11 million or something.
I thought it was 7 this year originally.
It was more than 2.
Yeah. But we didn't have the grant. We didn't know what the grant was until, so we didn't know that 2 point whatever was coming.
So,
But,
Yeah,
okay,
eight-
so we
8
were saying
million.
that was 11 million. And the detention center, the thing about it is though, FY '22 is 12 million.
12 million.
And FY '23 is another 4 million. So it's a total of 22 million.
yeah, but the funding's, or the bond on that is, what is jump, 8 million for the detention center. So I'm saying out of that 11 million, you're telling me that 8 million of it was the detention center?
I don't think so. No.
Something's.
Well, look up, let's go look.
Yeah, I think it was.
Is it-
But I would say that, well, that's my
It is
point.
8 million, is that what that says?
Yeah.
It is 8 million.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, but we showed 11 million, so you're telling me that there's only 3 million, between the Board of Ed and everything else that's on that, for the bond?
Yeah,
I think
that's true, but you remember, it's sort of being a year out is not entirely, certainly people are gonna come in and request more than that.
That isn't,
Because it's a
that
next-
haven't done it over the 6-year plan, you mean?
Yeah, because unless you're in the current year of the 6-year plan, some of the out-year numbers are not sort of finalized or even entirely planned for, so I'm sure when people request next year, it's gonna be more than that.
Okay, well, I'm concerned with what we're pushing this year to next year. So, you've got the 11 plus what we push, which could be up to $5 million.
Well, having 8 million in there does make next year a tough year, because you're already.
Well, but it won't be 8 million
But
next
it's
year,
gonna
because
get
it'll be,
pushed. The
everything will
construction
get
schedule
pushed,
needs to
because
get
we've already
pushed.
pushed
I'm not sure. I don't have
the
the
design
details.
and, the 2 million and the design and everything to next year.
You might as well figure pushing 4 of that 8 to 23.
Right.
To be
So we should
reasonable.
move, so you're saying move,
If we're moving the detention center this year to next year, then next year's gets moved to the following year.
right.
Or
So
it's, I
forth.
wouldn't take it all, just split it for now, just so we got somewhat of an idea. You know what I mean? Take 4 and 4.
12 million next year.
Figuring the bulk would come in what, 23, 24,
I mean, 8 of it
right?
being detention.
Construction wise, you figure this year, break ground 20, it's 2 years, yeah, so the bulk would be on the 23, 24 budget.
So what
That's
we
gonna
have
free
here
up
is,
4 next year.
we have most of the construction in 22. You're saying make it 23 and 24?
Well, the 23 budget would be when you would complete right now, and that's assuming we start within the next 8 to 10 months, even breaking ground.
Yeah. Okay. But we're gonna push it out. We're gonna push out FY '21 and FY '22.
So Jonathan,
Correct, 'cause yes, you can't move one
So
without
the
other.
bonds are gonna be lower by that amount.
Right.
Yes.
so you're saying this next year was 2.5 for detention, right? But our total hit for detention was something in the neighborhood of 10, which meant that the next year must have been 8.
It was.
It is 8.
It is.
It is.
8.2.
Of the whole bite of the next year's bond, 12 million, 8 of it was detention and 4 for the whole rest?
Yep.
That's what it's showing right
What
now.
it's got.
I thought we'd split it differently,
But now we will, because of the construction
Oh, I
schedule, yeah.
understand.
So it'll work out good.
better.
Better. Gooder.
More gooder.
More gooder.
Okay, so the, what else did we have here?
To just be planning for it or something in the bond.
I think that's all for the capital.
So what do you have for grant money? Did you budget a certain amount, same as what we did last year? Outside agencies, nonprofits?
Oh, that's in the book.
I know it's in the book, but what did you?
Oh,
What did
what was budgeted here?
Right.
Was FY '20 plus $80,000.
What page?
80,000. So if you go to page 57, and you see there's 423 in FY '20, and so the actual budgeted amount for next year is about 500,000. And you can see the request. So that's what's in the budget now. This obviously doesn't reflect that, so I thought we're going to have to address this at the next work session.
You're
too.
saying the 500,000 is in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
But what did we do last year? I thought we did 300.
We did 350. We did 70. I think it was 350 or 370 ahead.
70 ahead.
How do we,
350 plus there's the other.
Yeah, we have a couple that are repetitive every year that we just said, look at those got to, instead of us picking, that should just automatically flow through.
how do we treat the 4-H park? Is that considered an outside agency funding for
No,
them?
4-H Park has a regular line item in the budget. So if you look at page, you can see 4-H Park on page 5. It has a line item. If you look on page 5, the other agencies, 4-H Park is the second from the top. So that's its operating budget. But it also has capital, so the other place to look for 4-H Park is on
27?
Page 29. So if you look on page 29,
It has nothing in this year. Oh, no.
No, it does. It has
175.
176.5.
yeah.
capital.
And that was, what did we give them in, where did we give them in 20? 27?
Give them in 20.
She'd have to look that up in the capital.
You'd have to look it up
You
in
have it
the
in the
capital. You have
operating,
the
but not in the
FY
capital.
20, you have the, look up the FY 20 capital. Go back to the,
I was just reminded that place needs a lot of
Back
work.
to-
A lot of work. The pavilions,
Where's that?
the outbuildings. I mean, it needs
It does.
a lot of work.
It might not get a lot of use this year either, if things don't change.
I was already in a desperate situation the last few years anyway, so. Just curious, because I know that question's going to come up from that board.
so, well, we took that money out in FY 20. Looks like we didn't give them anything in 20.
Okay, well,
Got it out there, but you got it in here. You say it's not in there in capital?
20,
It's not,
page
no, it's
29.
not in
20,
FY
20,
20.
right,
It's not in the current year.
Right,
We did take it out.
right.
They did have some balance. Remember, we were looking at some of the balances, and they had some money left over. So it's not like they didn't have any money that they were spending. But this was what they requested for 21 anyway. But you're right, they have identified a pretty fair amount of work to be done there. Okay, so anyway, so the part of the capital that shows the reductions ends on page 53. So going to page 54. Okay, you with me? Okay, so page 54 is the positions, and it shows the FY20 and the FY21 positions that are included in the budget. It shows vacancies and total filled, and the FY21 requested, I will say, those are the enhancements. So there were 22 requested enhancements. The vacancy positions are ones which we've been going over with the county administrator, HR director, about the vacancies, and so this is kind of what, I mean, if you take a point in time, we're showing it as 22. I think it's actually, well, it's really 23, it may even be 26, but the intent was, I think, to give you a list of those that would be, I think, Todd, you can correct me, but I think we were going to give you a list of those that would be intended to be exempt from the freeze, because that's what you had asked us to do, was to say that you all would approve anything that was to be filled. So we've been going over to try to identify what's mission critical.
So Jonathan, to that end, we had a little bit of a discussion earlier with a lot of confusion around this whole chart here.
Okay.
And to help, or to, hopefully I found something on it, Jim, when I looked at it a little further. So part of the problem is we weren't supposed to have any jumps in employees at all between 2021. And if you notice, I picked out a couple like parks. You're showing a difference of 5 employees jumping between the 2 years, and there shouldn't have been any. It should have been 44, 44, but it actually went 44 to 45. So you actually picked up 5 employees between the 2 budget years. And there's several of them like that on here. So that's why those numbers are so skewed, because we're actually showing we're picking up employees in 21, which we're not supposed to be.
Well, are we talking about 20
They're not
or
vacancies.
21?
No, these aren't vacancies. These are, if you look out here, like parks, you say FY20 funded full-time 44. Funded FY21 full-time 49. That's a difference of 5 employees. And they have 2 vacancies, so that's a difference of 7 employees on the overall count.
I
Jim-
think that's
Jim has
because-
requested to have this
correct,
looked at,
but
and
I
I
think
think we
that's
need to
because
look
we
at it.
did that half a year thing and brought them on in January or something crazy like
But
that.
there's like 6 of them on here where they're
Still
jumped,
FY20.
so we need to look
Yeah,
at them.
We need to reconcile these numbers.
We need to reconcile,
Yeah.
exactly. That's all I'm saying, is go back and reconcile them and make sure that they are all right.
We'd have to go back, and what we have is sort of what did we actually budget for in FY20, our positions that, you can identify in the budget versus what did we identify in FY21. So we are, or those that were actually budgeted in FY21. But you're right. It
Right,
shouldn't
but if you
include
take-
things like enhancements.
Right, but if you take the 20, I think what Jim was looking for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, he was looking for, okay, what did we have in 20?
Right.
Right? How many vacancies do we have? So how short were we, or how many spots to be filled from 20 was there? Right? I mean, more or less. So
Correct.
we knew what that
Right,
was.
right.
So then we know exactly how many employees, minus the animal welfare, obviously, because we know that number's skewed.
Well, yeah, but
over
they're
time,
coming in
but-
anyway, so. I mean,
Right,
They're
so,
now
but
part of
yeah.
us.
And you can't decipher that from here. I've tried adding and subtracting every which way, and I can't get to them, so. But there's definitely just need to know what 20 budgeted was, how many vacancies we have from the 20 budgeted, and then that's going to tell you where we're at going into 21.
Yes, we can do that, and I think what you're going to see is that there were FY20 enhancements that are not showing in FY20. So if you look at IT, for instance, IT actually is adding positions during this current year. So when you see 8, I would say really with enhancements, it probably was 11. And the same with Parks. Parks did add positions in FY20. In fact, I think we added 4, as I remember.
Correct.
So
They were in the budget for 5, and remember I took 1 away to
Right.
fund something else and gave them 4.
But they were probably half funded, that's why.
Correct, that's right. The half-funded thing, bringing them in January.
So if you could explain which ones are the half funded, that'll clear up a bunch of
Well,
them.
I think actually the FY20 needs to be adjusted for those enhancements, because then Parks in FY20 would be 48. because they really got 4 more.
And that's
So
fine, that would make that number work
that would
out
make
better
it-
to the
right,
560.
It would be closer.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true for IT. So we'll have to go back and adjust that. Because
And that
you're
would have
right.
been the half-year fundings, correct?
Yes,
Probably.
right.
Okay. So that makes sense.
And we weren't even looking at the dollars, we were just trying to figure out how many employees.
Right.
Right.
So, you know, if you got, even if they came in halfway through the year, whatever the total is that's supposed to be in there for 20 who are working here today,
Right.
employee-wise, I mean, I would just take the snapshot now and then find out how many we're missing from how many should be here. So, and we're just trying to figure out how far are we down on vacancies, retirements, whatever the case may be, to find out before we say, you know, are these mission critical and we're bringing them back on, and, you know, trying to get a ground zero.
As far as I know.
What else you got?
The page 55 is the enhancements, which are, I think you've seen this, but we added a few notes. But again, the enhancement positions that were requested were, you can see at the bottom is 1.8 million. And what we ended up putting in the county administrator budget was 742,000, but all that's gone. So
Right, but that's exactly what we're just now talking about, because almost all of these are January start dates.
Correct.
So, yeah, they would go towards FY '21 for 742,000, but they would automatically jump up another $1.1 million in '22.
Correct.
So, I mean, you know, that's just a way to, I don't know, I'm not, you know, that's a tough one, them half
You
year
just gotta
ones.
start keeping in mind when you say half fund, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
You gotta put that into the
Exactly,
total.
right,
But they're not, remember, none of these are now
Correct.
in your proposed budget.
right.
Right, but any of the ones that are coming in that were half funded last year now are now coming in with the full
Yes.
amount, so.
Right. And when you look at the increase between FY '20 and FY '21, I mean, I identified a certain line item that was, okay, here's the amount of the increase that's like, because of the half-year funding, and it was like $400,000.
Right.
It was just money that wasn't in '20 but has to be in '21, because now they're there for a full year.
That's right. Yep, yep.
So, okay, so we talked about the grants, 56 and 57. You had come up last year with a kind of
Yep.
a way to kind of allocate that, so I don't know if you want to do that.
Well, if you've
again.
got 500 in there, it's $100,000 a commissioner,
Okay.
Okay,
unless they want to cut it down. So, I mean, look at it, you know, what might be your favorites, and we can go through that process at the next meeting.
Just put the spreadsheet up there again, just like we did last time.
Yeah.
That worked well.
okay.
We did 70 last year, right?
Yeah.
We did 70 each, right?
Correct, and he's got it where we're gonna have 100 each, right now. So, and we don't have to do that. If we want to go back to 70, we can go back to 70.
I'm gonna look and see what I wanna do.
Exactly.
And I'll see where I'm at.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't talked about the tax differential, but that's on page 58. We went through the process. I did meet with each of the municipalities, and they made their requests. And so there are increases kind of everywhere in some amount. So if you look at the top box and the last line is FY '20 funding, you go over to the right, it's 895,000.
What page are you on?
58.
Oh, I got it, yeah.
So on 58, the FY '20 funding total was 895,000. What's proposed for FY '21 is the last line, 941,593. So there is an increase there of about $50 million or so.
50 million.
I'm sorry, 50,000.
That sounds a little better.
50,000, and you can see it for each. So, for instance, Centerville in FY '20 was 643, and proposed for FY '21 677.
45,000.
So the other larger ones, Queenstown is 157. It's proposed to go to 162. So they're all increases of one kind or another. Nobody goes down. There's a couple that are kind of held harmless. Templeville gets the same amount. Churchill goes up a little. This, of course, is not, so they're all increased. It's not what they requested, because they always request more. and we don't really give them everything they ask for.
Are we good with setting the precedence of giving them money even though we're cutting our budgets by $7 million? I mean,
Yeah, I
shouldn't
am.
we hold them to the 20 budget just like we're doing? I know it's 50 grand and then it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it's just the precedence
actually
going forward. I
45,000.
mean, 45,000.
I'm good with giving it to them. I just think that,
I'm fine with giving it to them. I'm just saying, I just don't want to set a precedence if we had another downturn year. then
oh, no,
they come in.
we can only, one, so I'm good with that.
Okay?
Okay?
So go with that. And the last page is the constant yield rate. This is the ad that was in the paper. So we've advertised this. I don't know whether anybody's
I saw it.
calls, but you understand that this is language that, of course, we're required by the state to call it a tax increase. So it's a notice of a proposed real property tax increase because assessments went up. And so the total amount of your assessable base went up even though your tax rate stays the same. So what you can see from here, if you look at number 2, it's close to $1 million increase in property taxes as a result of increased assessments. So that's kind of what's considered a tax increase using this language. So it's 1.4% higher. And so the rest of the ad, we're going to, hopefully people will call in and we're going to have our the live feed and the live for next time, or for 2 weeks. Yeah. That's all I got. I think
enough.
that's everything.
That's enough.
Yes, it is.
That's enough.
I
All
actually
right.
have a headache.
We are going to go to press and public comment.
Sure.
All right. So we did have a couple people that had joined Zoom, and you actually answered their questions along the way. So they withdrew their comment,
Okay?
but we do have someone waiting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute our room so that we can hear them.
Hi, I'm Janet Salazar. I am the director for the Queen Anne's County Library, and I thank you commissioners for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. The Kent Island Branch Expansion Project has been a long time in the making. Back in 2007, the proposal was made to expand the branch to better serve the growing population of Kent Island. And as we know, the recession hit and that project was postponed. Here we are now, more than 10 years later, poised to move this project into construction, and we are once again faced with an uncertain economic future. What we have learned from the last recession was that people do come to the library when the economy takes a downturn. From 2007 to 2011, the Queen Anne's County Library saw a 15% increase in library visits from our community and a 49% increase in attendance at library programs. Since 2007, library program attendance has increased from 3,400 attendees per year to 17,300 attendees in fiscal year 2019, which is just shy of 400% increase. Our virtual presence has grown as well, with our web wireless sessions growing from 53,000 in 2010, which was the first year we recorded that statistic, to 97,000 in 2019, which is an 80% increase in the use of library virtual resources. There is no doubt in my mind that our community values its library and the resources the library provides. This was made even more evident with a recent survey the library put out to our community, gauging interest in programming and resources needed during the COVID-19 pandemic. In a matter of just 2 weeks, the library saw 1,100 surveys returned to us from community members eager to engage with the library virtually, and as we return to some sort of normal operating conditions in our library spaces. As this is a matching grant and we have the funds for the $2.5 million capital grant, we thank you for including the matching funds in the capital budget to continue the plans for expansion, ensuring that we have a certainty of continued library programs, services, and spaces in these most uncertain times. And I thank you for your time tonight.
All right, and that's all for our Zoom comments, but we do have some emails, and we also have some to read here at the table. So I'm going to mute us in here and go right back to our room. Good, Mike. All right, our first email comes from Robert Rager. Just a reminder that Shaw will be paving Maryland 213, Liberty and Commerce Streets through Centerville beginning in early June. Prior to that, we're doing a few ADA ramp sidewalk repairs in town. We certainly understand the need to minimize business impacts as stores and shops begin to reopen. We've been in touch with the town and are aware of the farmers market going on May 20th and the need to accommodate drive-up service as much as possible on Wednesdays. We'll adapt paving schedules as best as we can to minimize impacts, but this will be a balancing act as we need to get good productivity once the milling is underway. The public can help in this regard by planning ahead for alternate parking arrangements and obeying all no parking signs when they're posted. Will likely affect parking on several different occasions for milling, paving, and the final stripping. This shouldn't take long. With good weather, the milling and paving will be done by mid-June, and we can all enjoy a long-awaited smooth ride through Centerville. All right. Then we have a couple write-ins also. So this comes from Aaron and Chris Harmon. I am writing in support of the library expansion funding as parents of 2 children in the QACPS system. The library resources, staff, and events have engaged and taught my children an enormous amount throughout their developing years. It is a huge asset to growing a strong and healthy community. Please vote to fund their expansion. Thank you. This one comes from Sarah Helwidge. Dear QAC Commissioners, I hope you're all healthy and safe in this challenging time. As a QAC resident and parent of 3 children, I am writing to strongly encourage your support of the financial commitment to dedicate $2.5 million to fund the expansion of Kent Island Library. Over the past 16 years, my family and I have used the Centerville and Kent Island libraries for a variety of activities, including toddler story hour, Saturday art activities, reading to Rover, after-school Nike play, one-on-one SAT tutoring, adult classes on health and wellness, and meetings for our HOA, volunteer organizations, and Girl Scouts. All of my children were excited and proud to get their first library cards in elementary school. As an avid reader and a former school psychologist, I value the free access to books and other resources. As a community member, the library has always been a place to gather for local-oriented projects, meetings, and fun. Kent Island is a thriving community with many opportunities for local involvement. Unfortunately, there are a few community spaces for groups and organizations to meet and grow. Expanding the library to include more space for the myriad of offerings is essential for the well-being of QAC children, families, seniors, and all community members. Please support the dedication of $2.5 million to match state funding to expand the KI library. And our final one this evening comes from Karen Wimsat. Our library is wonderful, a wonderful resource for everyone from children exploring ideas and adults pursuing lifelong learning. The meeting room is used by many organizations in our community, as well as for various classes for all ages. Please fund the expansion project for our Kent Island Library. And that concludes our public comment.
Excellent. So we'll close press and public comment, go to roundtable, and Jack?
I just got one thing. I just want to give a shout out. We have this weekend, for those that in the county that aren't aware, we have a chicken sale taking place to help out the chicken producers here on the shore to get the chickens to market, number one. So some may have heard that they had a large euthanasia incident that they had to do just because with all the closures and all, and they're finding trouble in the processing plants, having a hard time getting the stuff to market. So the details are Saturday, May 16th, which is this Saturday, from 9 to 1. It will be, pickup will be at Chesapeake College. I understand they had quite the bevy of orders yesterday. So the you can only do pre-order. You can go on Facebook. I believe it's been shared out just about everywhere. It's frozen boneless thighs are $50 a case. Frozen boneless tenders are $60 a case. They're 40-pound cases with 4 10-pound bags in them. So I encourage everybody. It's going to be done alphabetically. Middletown did it 2 weeks ago, and we're going to try to avoid, they had a 3-mile backup, but apparently there's a lot of people with the name from A to F in Middletown. So after that, it apparently smoothed out. So I think they're going to try and separate it out a little bit. So I encourage everybody to get some chicken if you got room in the freezer and fill them up.
Excellent. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to remark on something a little different than chickens, and that's our That is our positives count in the county, which has been dramatically worse this week. About a week ago, we were at 70, and we're now 115, which is not a good number. But I would like to assure the community that that is not our total population. A great number of this condition came from a very small select group of immigrant-type workers in the north part of the county, and that generally speaking, we've maintained an extremely good count amongst our general population, that we at this point have still 0 deaths and 1 or 2 hospitalizations, which is outstanding for 50,000 people. But the number has risen really at an alarming rate. But that results from testing of the state in a particular population and is not reflective of our general state.
Excellent.
End of speech.
Thank you. Commissioner Dumanel.
A couple things. One, to our graduating seniors at both our high schools. I know this has been a difficult year for them, for sure. Some rites of passage obviously have been denied. Things that you work hard for 12 years to get to that point. And an expectation you have to be able to walk across a stage or have some semblance of a graduation ceremony. Most of the parents of our graduating seniors in Queen Anne's County received a letter that the travel restriction has been amended for families to graduate or take their seniors to their graduation ceremonies. No details yet as to exactly what Queen Anne's County Board of Education and Dr. Kane is going to do for our seniors, but there is a plan that they're working on, and the details of that plan will come out. So to those senior parents out there and those seniors that are graduating, hang in there, we're working on something for you. The other item that I wanted to make everybody aware of is obviously our volunteer fire companies have fundraisings through crab feasts and bull and oyster roasts and things of that nature. And because of the restrictions and social distancing issues that we have with COVID-19, a lot of those firehouses have not been able to do those fundraisers. So if you live in a community, a planned community that has an HOA, perhaps you might want to consider making a donation to the firehouse in the first due call area of your community. Certainly something to consider to help them get through these times where they can't do any fundraising, yet when we need them, they still answer that bell. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Corcorino.
Yeah, so heard today that Camp Wright is not going to be having camp session this summer. I think we will be hearing about other camps that are going to be closing this summer. As far as Parks and Recs, a lot of ours are done through the schools, and we don't know if the school buildings will allow the access for that. So I think something that I would like us to look at is parents have been home a lot with their kids already, and looks like they're going to be home with them a lot longer. Any sort of distance camp that we could come up with in conjunction maybe with some other counties, where even if it's an hour of something that they can log into, you know, a cooking class or something that the kids can do to keep them active, mentally stimulated. It would seem to me that we're not alone in this boat, and if you're going to be streaming through the internet, it's something that we might be able to do with some of the other jurisdictions to sort of share some of that cost and come up with something to keep the kids entertained so that the parents who are home with them have some time to get some work done. Speaking from personal experience.
Chris, when you talked to Camp Wright, was it strictly a financial thing, or that they
I got
couldn't
an
get
email.
the numbers there to, to make, in other words, if they got 50% of their, and again, this is a question we say to most businesses, are going to have to make the call on, is if you can only get 50% capacity, is that enough to make money? But is that what it was, that they didn't feel like they could get the capacity there, even exercising social distancing?
I haven't spoke with them, got an email from them
I gotta
saying
believe
that
it's just the regulations that they just can't have it from the governor's office,
So you can't even
I mean,
do
because that's a camp that
well, so I think the governor's office hasn't said yes or no on it yet. They're concerned about what restrictions will be in place or not. And that, so they're worried about health issues, obviously. It's very hard with kids to have activities with social distancing. If you have a large group of kids, you'd have to have more counselors. Overnight camp, obviously, would be a whole nother story that's even more difficult.
But I'm thinking day camps as well.
But for the day camps, I think they're worried about, are they going to be able to keep up on sanitizing areas? Are they even going to be, what numbers are they going to be limited to? Can they even get staff to do it? So I think they looked at a whole host of things, and some of the camps have already started saying, we're not going to be able to do this. It's not going to work from a financial perspective as well as from a safety perspective. And I think we'll hear more camps, unfortunately. I think more camps will do that. I heard from my daughters enrolled a soccer camp across the bridge. They also said that they may need to close as well for the summer.
So even doing it in like shifts or anything like that they haven't talked about anything like that. I just think if anybody's out there that's got any ideas, I think sharing them at this point with any of these activities like this would be great, especially since we're hopefully going to get into a somewhat of a relaxed and a more progressively opening up stage here, that if you have ideas for some of these to meet Commissioner Corcarino's needs over there,
Or if you need three young interns, I have 3 children who are happy to go intern this summer. The 7-year-old is very active; she can help. But there's a lot of parents in that position, and it's been hard.
And it's going to hurt the job market too.
Yeah. Right, and it's one thing to say get back to work, but if you have kids who are too young to be left home alone, you can't just go back to work. And I was reading an article in Italy where, their parents they're bringing the kids to the grandparents' house where they're not supposed to be because the grandparents should be quarantining themselves. So it's going to be a very difficult couple of months throughout the summer. So if there are things that we can come up with, some creative ideas to give them something to do so they're just not watching the TV all day long, so there's something to stimulate them.
Will do.
Or I'll just send them all over to Commissioner Moran's pool for the day.
Bring them. As long as they know how to swim. Bring them.
They'll learn.
There you go. So
That's right.
I've been fortunate enough the last couple of weeks to get on the conference call with the governor of what's going on, and I think that tomorrow night he has a press conference at 5 o'clock, and I think it's going to finally be some good news. I think the counties are going to be able to have their own autonomy to an extent, and we'll wait and see what he says tomorrow. But I think what I worry about now, after listening to what you said, Chris, is that even if we start bringing businesses back online, if the daycares aren't there,
right,
or those daycares aren't allowed to open yet, I mean, it's going to be a strange road that everybody's going to have to travel.
Yeah, I've heard from some of these daycare centers, and even with doing reduced students,
right,
they're losing money.
Right.
So, and they could lose
probably
money for a
won't
couple months.
reopen anyway.
But some of them might not reopen. Some might have to close and not reopen.
And that's where the problem comes.
Well,
in.
but that brings the economic problem with that is that so those people that have incurred the debt, they still got rent, they still got utilities, and then they shut down and they file bankruptcy. So, or whatever the case may be, the entrepreneurs that see the need for daycare that don't have that debt because they weren't in business now come in and start up. So I think you're going to see some changeovers, different businesses in the same location owned by different people and or just reopening. I'm just hoping. Nobody knows. I mean, you're not getting any definite answers. I know that they're working on rules and regulations. Commerce for the state is going to have a little handout, but we have Dr. Ciatola. So I'm hoping that PRS hopefully will be able to get open here by next Monday at the very latest. So we'll see. We asked, we hoped. So
right now we don't know how much autonomy they're going to give us.
well, they're going to. Well, we still have to stay within the phases.
Phase 1.
Yeah, phase one. But and what that means is more than likely the larger counties aren't going to start with phase 1, but the smaller counties, rural counties that have a much better track record will be able to start on phase 1 and as much of phase 1 as you want to do it, or as little as you want to do. So just because he's not going to come out and say we're in phase 1, everybody follow phase 1. He's going to come out and say, counties, your counties better than I do. You're in phase 1. Between your health department and we have inspectors, that can help. And I'm hoping that this portion of it, if you live in Queen Anne's County and you work in Queen Anne's County, then go back to work. Get open, go back to work, and we're gonna have to start feeling, because there's going to be issues. There's and but
so Could a county, say, move to phase 2 quicker than other counties? In other words,
Not yet. Well, yes, because if certain counties don't open up to phase 1.
right, I'm saying,
there's a time
say
constraint.
Montgomery County doesn't ever go to phase 1, and we're basically meeting the numbers for phase 2. We could move to phase 2 while.
Well, he hasn't come out and said that yet, but we would lobby for that, to say, look, here we are, here's our track record.
That makes sense.
Right.
If we're meeting the
Because we've
numbers
got to
for
remember, once we go to phase 2, or whoever goes to phase 2, and somebody else is just starting phase 1, you got to watch out for the bleed overs. you know,
cross-
so, yeah,
cross-pollination, I got you.
There's always going to be issues, but I'm praying that June gets here and it gets warmer.
Supposed to be 80
and the
on
numbers
Friday.
really start to tank and things will loosen up and we can get back to some normalcy. So that's all I got. Let's,
One other thing.
okay.
Yeah, Jonathan. I'm kind of interested, and I think the other commissioners would be, that we are proceeding through our budget process, and so far just relying on stabilization fund, where I'm interested whether other counties are having to go into rainy day or do tax increases, and I think it'd be kind of nice to hear.
They're all hoping and praying that the federal government bails them out.
There's a lot of rainy days.
Yeah.
But they've got to make a budget. They can't
Correct.
live on that prayer.
Yeah.
So
You want me to tell you?
yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, they put out a list.
yeah,
You asked me, well, I did a survey today.
good man. Head of the game.
Somebody did tax increases. It was a big one. Was it Montgomery? They were talking.
So the question was, were counties using some type of reserves, not necessarily rainy day fund, but some type of reserves? Carroll County said no. Prince George's County, yes, is using $63 million in reserves, which is about 3% of their budget. For us, it would be equivalent to about $4 to $5 million. Talbot County is using $6.7 million from fund balance. Hartford County is using $27.4 million. Washington County is not using it. Baltimore City is not for FY21, but they are using rainy day funds for FY20, current year. Kent County, no, they're not. Howard County is using $7.5 million in contingency reserves for FY21. So that was 8. I talked to 8. Half of them are using some type of reserves. And 5 if you include FY20.
But a couple of those, like Washington County, they raised their income piggyback last year to 3.2. So this year would be the tax year they would see that bump. They wouldn't have necessarily got it all last year, you know what I mean? So that may be offsetting them enough for this year because they did raise their, and somebody else did that you just read off, took it to 3.2 out of those. Carroll. I think Carroll's at 3.2 now. So that's what I'm saying, that when you take that income tax, you don't see that bump that year you do it necessarily. You see it the next year when the revenue comes in, so.
When is our next budget meeting?
It is June the
June?
1st, or June 2nd?
June 2nd, right?
So we
So
don't
we
meet again on the
potentially
budget
have-
till June 2nd?
What's that?
We don't meet on the budget again till June 2nd?
You have a public hearing on the 26th, 2 weeks from tonight.
So let's meet and go before that hearing.
Okay,
Let's have one more work session.
we'll have another work session,
Yeah.
like
So that meeting, the hearing is what day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So,
It's a normal Tuesday meeting.
yeah, so let's do it next Tuesday.
Before that, next Tuesday?
Yeah, how about,
Then we
next
have
Tuesday,
Wednesday.
5 PM? Excuse me?
Then that Wednesday, we have the hearing. Tuesday's the.
No, we don't have, that was an optional hearing.
Oh, was it? I thought you had
Tuesday,
scheduled that.
yeah, that was
We have
optional.
nothing next week, so we could do it next
Yeah,
week.
nothing next week, Tuesday,
next
5 o'clock?
Tuesday?
Yeah, 5 o'clock. We'll do a work session, we'll go through the grants, we'll go to see what you got for the capital, and we'll hash it out and get it finalized,
Okay,
okay? And then that way that'll be done for the following Tuesday where you can put out what we actually do,
right,
we're actually hoping for.
correct.
Okay. Work for you? Next
Yeah.
5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
So you want to release this budget then
Yeah, you
publicly?
can,
and
you
then-
can release it, but we'll go ahead and, if you need to release it to make things flow, go ahead and release it, and next Tuesday we'll nail it down some more and get it where we want it, and then go through the hearings, and then hopefully after that, be done.
Okay.
Okay?
So I think we would be remiss if we didn't send out a big, quick thank you. Mike, if you don't mind putting the camera on Bruce and Brittany over there, to thank them for helping us get through our meeting. Brittany from our finance department, and then obviously Bruce from QAC Channel 7 for helping out tonight. Thank you very much, you two.
Bruce, the man behind the mic.
That's right.
And Brittany, the woman behind the numbers.
That's right.
We also have Chris in the hallway. He helped.
Oh, that's right.
Chris is in the hallway. Chris, thank you.
Is that true?
Very good. All right. Anything else? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.